Pokémon, the strongest trainer. Greetings, fellow multiversal adventurers. It's an honor to have you back in this saga that has us all hooked. Official channel statement: this story is 100% epic fiction, so please don't attempt real magic. The results aren't guaranteed and insurance won't cover it. The rights to this masterpiece belong entirely to its brilliant original author. We are just a barge sharing it with you. Do you want to keep being part of this amazing community? Join our ninja army of subscribers on YouTube and give this content a like. And for true fans, our Patreon has exclusive ninjutsu waiting for you. Chapter 250, Super Powerful Extreme Flame Bomb. The shock brought by super evolution. At this moment, countless spectators stared in bewilderment at Johnson's awkward dance, some even unable to suppress their laughter. What's going on? Why are British trainers suddenly dancing? And this dance? A Daksha spectator observed the awkward dance, unable to contain his laughter. Are they surrendering to our Daksha? That's not necessary. Another seemingly intelligent spectator expressed his opinion with a twisted expression, a hint of embarrassment. The rest of the British audience wanted to refute these Daksha people, but they didn't know how to begin, and their faces flushed. The other national teams in the main venue watched the scene with solemn expressions, their eyes fixed on what would happen next. Through certain channels, they had learned that the British Kingdom and the Bald Eagle Federation possessed a powerful special power that could unleash immense power in a short period of time. The national teams had always been wary of this, but since they had never witnessed it firsthand, they didn't know how to defend against it. Meanwhile, the players' lounge of the Great Xia Nation. Is this the so-called Z move? This is too eye-catching, Zhang Lior said with a twitch of his mouth. Ran Qiangsha suppressed his inner smile and tried his best to control his face. He said in a delicate voice, "This is really unexpected." After hearing what the two said, the other players could no longer control their laughter and burst out laughing. Feng glanced at everyone and said with a deep gaze, "This is the action that must be used with Z moves. With the help of these specific actions, the power of nature can be unleashed, making certain Pokemon's moves burst out with superpower." Although he also felt that dancing awkwardly in such an occasion would easily lead to a state of social death, Feng did not deny the powerful increase in the power of skills and moves brought by Z moves. On the battlefield. After seeing Johnson's actions, Zhang Dingding's face suddenly changed drastically, and he remembered Feng's instructions to him. Then, he shouted solemnly to Diva, "Diva, use blizzards continuously to interrupt Inferno." From Inferno's dance, Diva sensed a strong sense of danger, turning extremely serious. Diva roared, and powerful ice energy erupted from his body. Raising his massive fangs, he unleashed a fierce blizzard toward Inferno, attempting to interrupt its current movement. Blizzard. Countless fine snowflakes, swept by the fierce wind, spread toward Inferno, unleashing the most brutal attack. Johnson, still dancing awkwardly, witnessed this scene, his expression changing. With an anxious look on his face, he addressed Centipede King. "Centipede King, use the cross-poison blade to stop Diva." With a sharp cry, the Centipede King nimbly sprinted towards Diva, slashing fiercely with a poison blade, imbued with immense poisonous energy. Unwilling to be outdone, Diva retaliated with its saltwater move, becoming entangled with Centipede King and unable to intervene against Inferno's awkward dance. Zhang Dingding saw Inferno's aura growing stronger, its dance becoming increasingly fluid, seemingly nearing its end. He knew he could no longer prevent Inferno's Z move, and he sighed softly. After a moment's reflection, he quickly ordered Ice Devil to support Diva. Immediately, with Ice Devil's support, the pressure on Diva suddenly eased, and they joined forces with Ice Feng, outflanked Centipede King from both sides. Faced with this situation, Centipede King had no way to fully defend himself. After fending off Diva's attacks, he forcibly took Ice Devil's Ice Fang. A moment later, Ice Fang, leveraging the weather, successfully triggered the freezing effect, freezing Centipede King in place, immobilizing him for a short period. Seizing this opportunity, Ice Devil and Digimon unleashed a powerful headbutt and tail attack on the Centipede King, wiping out the severely wounded king. But before they could even catch their breath, a fierce sense of danger suddenly washed over them. Behind them, a blazing flame erupted, a brilliant, dazzling crimson glow. Infernape, powered by its Z power, amplified its fire-breathing ability, blazing with blazing flames. With unstoppable momentum, it charged towards Ice Devil and Digimon. Super strong ultimate flame bomb. A flicker of fear flashed across Zhang Dingding's eyes, and he shouted in a trembling voice, "Ice Devil, Digimon, Hold on, boom. A violent explosion echoed, and the entire battlefield erupted in a dazzling light, a sea of blazing flames spreading in all directions. Countless people stared at the scene in shock, bewildered expressions, their eyes filled with horror. By the time the battlefield returned to calm, Diva and Scylla had already lost their ability to fight, lying quietly in the same place, unable to move at all. All the spectators and players who saw this scene fell silent, speechless for a long time. Zhang Dingding lowered his head and thought for a while, silently retracted Scylla and Diva, and released his last Pokémon, Houndoom. The strength of this Houndoom was similar to that of Scylla and Diva, only at the peak of the gym. It was not that Zhang Dingding did not want to use his quasi-premier Pokémon, but his quasi-premier Pokémon was a Squirtle, which was obviously at a disadvantage against the equally powerful Infernape. In order to ensure victory in this game, Zhang Dingding had no choice but to use Houndoom. Johnson took a deep breath, carefully sensing Houndoom's strength, and said mockingly, "Daksha, is this the extent of your strength? You can't even produce a quasi-king level Pokémon? Is this a regular member of Daksha?" How disappointing. Zhang Dingding looked up at Johnson's words, his hands clenched into fists. But he didn't refute them. He knew full well that facing these Westerners who claimed to advocate for freedom, only a powerful counterattack would silence them. Zhang Dingding took a deep breath, revealing the Mega Evolution Stone pendant hanging from his chest. He gripped it tightly in his right hand, and said solemnly to Houndoom not far away, "Houndoom, Mega Evolution." Instantly, under the gaze of countless people, a brilliant light erupted from Zhang Dingding and Houndoom, completely enveloping them. What's going on? Could it be that the Great Xia Kingdom has also mastered the power of Z moves? The Bald Eagle Federation members suddenly stood up, staring intently at Zhang Dingding, their voices filled with confusion. "No, this is definitely not a Z move. This is another powerful force." A Bald Eagle member, well versed in Z moves, quickly denied their suspicions, offering a terrifying alternative. Instantly, all the Bald Eagle Federation members fell silent, the atmosphere becoming incredibly solemn and eerie. The rest of the audience sat in bewilderment, their mouths slightly agape, unsure of what to say. A few seconds later, Mega Houndoom appeared on the battlefield, roaring at Infernape not far away. He then unleashed his flame explosion, attacking Infernape with a giant flaming attack. Infernape, having just used a Z move and exhausted its stamina, was unconsciously slowed down for a moment, and was directly hit by the flame explosion, leaving a grimace of pain. Hearing Infernape's screams, Johnson snapped back to his senses and attempted to have Infernape use its sleep move to recover. But Zhang Dingding wouldn't miss such a good opportunity. He quickly commanded Mega Houndoom to press on, not allowing Infernape to recover its lost strength. Leveraging his mid-stage quasi-king strength, he launched a fierce attack. 5 minutes later, Mega Houndoom used the destructive beam move, instantly finishing Infernape off and rendering it incapable of combat. Simultaneously, upon seeing its opponent defeated, Mega Houndoom immediately exited its Mega Evolution state and returned to its normal form. Countless witnesses were filled with shock, as if they had witnessed something incredible. Thus, victory in the first individual match fell to the Great Xia Nation. But even more than the outcome, countless spectators and competitors from other nations were curious about the power that the Great Xia Nation had displayed, capable of such a dramatic boost to its Pokémon in such a short period of time. From the comparison of the two powers just now, they were well aware that, compared to the Z move, the power displayed by the Great Xia Nation seemed to be a force that leaped from the level of life, with greater endurance. For a moment, countless eyes fell on the location of the Great Xia Nation's lounge, revealing expressions of immense fear. Chapter 251, Strong Defeat and Enter the Top 8. The advent of Mega Evolution sent shockwaves through the air. Countless trainers and higher-ranking officials from around the world turned their attention to the ancient nation of Great Xia. Suddenly, the flood of requests for visits overwhelmed the Great Xia officialdom. Zhang Dingding surveyed the conference room and breathed a sigh of relief. The pent-up pressure suddenly eased, and he silently turned and headed for the Great Xia lounge. "Wait a minute, can I ask what that power was?" Johnson, recovering from his distraction as Zhang Dingding left, asked with some hesitation. Although his voice was soft, everyone's attention was fixed on the battlefield. Listening carefully, they could understand his meaning. Instantly, the entire conference room fell silent. Everyone held their breath, their eyes fixed on Zhang Dingding, hoping for an answer. Zhang Dingding paused at Johnson's words, pausing for a moment before slowly turning and proudly declaring, This is a mega evolution, discovered by Feng, our great Xia team leader. Zhang Dingding noticed the curiosity and inquiry on everyone's faces, but he made no attempt to explain. Instead, he offered a mischievous smile. After he finished speaking, Zhang Dingding headed back toward the Great Xia Players Lounge, oblivious to the crowd's surprise. Mega evolution, Johnson and the other spectators murmured under their breath, their expressions becoming deeply complex. Upon hearing Zhang Dingding's words, the hearts of all the competitors sank, their expressions becoming extremely serious. They had already grasped a great deal from Zhang Dingding's words, realizing that these mega evolutions were definitely not just isolated cases, but were very likely a complete system, like the Z moves. The thought of this weighed heavily on the shoulders of the competitors, making them feel a bit breathless. Then, after a short break, the second team match began. This time, Daksha sent Jin Ren to face Oliver of the British Kingdom. Jin Ren fielded Natural Bird and Bullfrog, while Oliver fielded Eclipse and Solarite. The difference in power between the two Pokémon wasn't significant, both at the early stages of the Quasi-King level. After a moment's deliberation, Jin Ren had Bullfrog unleash his full-strength Rain Call upon its appearance. With a combined power of Rain Call's hidden ability, the weather changed before Oliver could react, transforming the battlefield into a rainy day. Meanwhile, Natural Bird, upon its appearance, didn't attack Solarite and Moonstone. Instead, it continuously dodged their attacks and used skills and moves that provided support, constantly accumulating its power. Oliver, sensing something was amiss, quickly ordered Solarite and Moonstone to attack, but Bullfrog's relentless engagement proved insufficient to stop Natural Bird's movements. Seeing Natural Bird's power fully built up, Jin Ren issued a command that surprised everyone. He immediately had Tenro use its Baton move, replacing Ragnarok with his last available Pokémon, Ragnarok. With a Baton move's effect, Ragnarok inherited the boost granted by Tenro's support and, under Jin Ren's command, instantly entered its Mega Evolution state. Furthermore, taking advantage of the rainy conditions, Ragnarok unleashed its maximum Thunderbolt power on Sunrock and Moonrock, continuously raining down thunderbolts from the dark clouds high above. Faced with a terrifying surge of lightning, Sunrock and Moonrock, already weakened by the rainy weather, were unable to withstand such a powerful attack and soon lost their fighting ability. Oliver stared at this scene in disbelief, stunned for a long moment before silently releasing his final Pokémon, Kirinki. Although Kirinki was a quasi-elite level Pokémon, and among the strongest Pokémon in this league, it was no match for the Mega Ragnarok, which had completed the boost from the Rain Relay team. Furthermore, Raidemon wasn't the only one on the field. There was also a constantly sniping Bullfrog, occasionally using his water gun ability to disrupt Kirinki. Without a trace of surprise, Kirinki fell under Raidemon's full-strength Thunder, instantly losing all combat power. Although Oliver wanted Kirinki to use his Z move, Supreme Spirit Destruction Wave, to alleviate his current disadvantage, Jin Ren, already prepared, wouldn't let him succeed. Oliver watched the match end in frustration, unable to execute his Z move. Thus, the Great Xia team won the first round of the team competition, directly scoring 4 points with their Mega Evolutions, bringing the match to match point. Witnessing this, the teams from each nation exchanged glances, each seeing the solemnity and fear in their respective eyes. Their worst fears had finally come true. The Great Xia team's Mega Evolution proved to be just as they'd imagined, a complete system, not just a single instance. However, the weaknesses exposed by the Z moves were also noticed by many of the contestants, which brought a sigh of relief to the solemn crowd. Although they couldn't withstand the powerful Z moves, as long as they didn't allow the bald eagles to use them, the result would be the same as if they had. A few minutes later, the individual competition between the Great Xia Kingdom and the British Kingdom began. To ensure no accidents, Feng directly assigned Feng to take over this match. His opponent was Jennifer, the captain of the British Kingdom. Perhaps knowing that victory was hopeless, the British Kingdom team, to avoid the embarrassment of being shaved, hoped that Jennifer could win a game to make the entire British Kingdom look less embarrassing. Unfortunately, Feng did not fulfill their wish. Instead, he forcefully sent out his own Banjira, directly entering its Mega Evolution state. Using the influence of the desolate field and his strength comparable to that of a Peking, he forced Jennifer's 6 Pokémon to defeat them. Although Jennifer's 6 Pokémon were all near elite, with many nearing elite status, they were no match for the ferocious and violent Mega Banjira. During this period, Jennifer even used Water Z, Mega Water Whirlpool, against Lu Feng's Mega Banjira, but it didn't seriously injure it. Finally, Jennifer helplessly put down her Pokeball and numbly released her Pokémon to complete the match. In less than 15 minutes, all of Jennifer's Pokémon were incapacitated. The audience and contestants were silent as the final result was announced. From Lu Feng's Banjira, they finally understood the immense power that Mega Evolution brings, and the profound impact this mysterious power can have on powerful Pokémon. With the conclusion of the match, the Great Xia Kingdom successfully advanced to the quarterfinals, decisively eliminating the favorite, the British Kingdom. Chapter 252, Semi-Final Spot, against Fuso. May 23, Thursday. The quarterfinals began, and the Great Xia team arrived at the competition venue in high spirits. After a new round of opponent draws, Great Xia's opponent in this match was the Western team, known as the Horse Driver of the Sea. As the brief message slowly appeared on the large electronic screen, the faces of many Western players suddenly stretched to a point of unease. As a team in the league's quarterfinals, if there were two teams the Western team least wanted to face, they would definitely be the Bald Eagle team and the Great Xia team. Originally, there was also the British team, but since they had been defeated by the Great Xia, the gloom hanging over the Western team was much less. As for the Bald Eagle Federation and the Great Xia, one possessed powerful Z moves, while the other possessed mysterious Mega Evolutions. Neither of these two extraordinary powers was a match the Western team could currently contend with. Therefore, when the match officially began, the players from the Western team were immediately overwhelmed by those from the Great Xia Kingdom. Without much effort, they were all defeated by the Mega Evolved Pokémon. There were some minor incidents, for example, when the captain of the Western team, relying on his immense power, commanded a Shield Blade to defeat Rankai-Angsha's Mega Garchomp, showing the captains of the other countries that Mega Evolution was not insurmountable. However, this did not prevent the Great Xia Kingdom from reaching the semifinals of the league. On Sunday, May 26, the competition for the semifinals slowly began. This time, the opponent chosen by the Great Xia Kingdom was the Fuso Kingdom, which had previously been their neighbor across the sea. The electronic screen in the main venue of the Xianyun Arena gradually displayed relevant match information, and the entire Great Xia Kingdom audience was boiling with excitement, their expressions becoming extremely excited, and they all started cheering. Daxia will win. Defeat the Japs, Daxia is invincible. Crush Fuso. Lu Feng and the others peered through the windshield of the players' lounge, their blood ignited. You all heard the crowd's cheers. This time against Fuso, I hope everyone will give it their all and not let a single match be easily lost. Wu Feng, hearing this voice, glanced solemnly at the others and spoke in a deep voice. Lu Feng and the others exchanged glances, nodded earnestly, and replied solemnly, Chairman Wu, rest assured. Even if we lose to the Bald Eagle, we won't lose to the Japs, he. This time, let's show the Japs that your dad is still your dad. Daxia against Fuso is like a father beating his son, Zhang Dingding said playfully, but the others didn't object, instead smiling. Time passed quickly, and in a blink of an eye, the matches began. The order of the competitions was individual, arena, and team. As the player information and the national flag images indicating their nationalities appeared on the electronic screen, Rankai-Angsha took a deep breath and walked out of the player lounge to the competition field. Soon after, the contestants from Fuso also took the stage, sending out their vice-captain, Fuma Kasaburo. Seeing that both players were ready, the referee announced the start of the match to the two. Rankai-Angsha and Fuma Kasaburo exchanged a glance and simultaneously tossed their Pokeballs, releasing their respective Pokemon. The next second, Rankai-Angsha's Dragonite and Fuma Kasaburo's Alola Ninetales appeared on the stage simultaneously. Seeing Rankai-Angsha start with Dragonite, Fuma Kasaburo's lips curled up involuntarily, his body trembling slightly. Ever since they knew their opponent in this match was Great Xia, Fuso mobilized countless think tanks to analyze Great Xia's lineup. They even considered the animosity between the two countries and focused on analyzing Great Xia's response strategy. Therefore, Fuma Kasaburo wasn't overly surprised by Rankai-Angsha's decision to send out Dragonite. Instead, his expression showed a sense of anticipation. Oh no. Chiksha starting with Dragonite is a huge disadvantage against the Alola Ninetales, Lu Feng said in a low voice, his brow furrowed, his gaze fixed on the battlefield. Chuksu, Tang Sei, and the others' expressions suddenly changed, and they asked worriedly, what should we do? What if Chiksha can't defeat Fuma Kasaburo decisively? Given the current audience sentiment, there's bound to be resistance. Lu Feng sighed, shook his head helplessly, and said, now it all depends on Chiksha herself, on the battlefield. Seeing the Ulala Ninetales before Fuumakasa Bureau, Rankai-Anxia's face darkened, her fists unconsciously clenched, and she was extremely nervous. She pondered for a few seconds. Rankai-Anxia took a deep breath, jerked her head up, and addressed a flying Dragonite. Dragonite, Flame Punch, woo! Dragonite growled, gazing sharply at the Ulala Ninetales, her expression grave. Dragonite easily sensed two auras from the Ninetales, both deeply repulsive. Dragonite flapped its small wings and flew toward the Ninetales with lightning speed, raising its right fist, ablaze with flames, and swung forward fiercely. Flame Punch. Fuumakasa Bureau, observing the rapidly approaching Dragonite, showed no sign of panic, but rather an expression of anticipation. Just as Dragonite's attack was about to land, Fuumakasa Bureau whispered, Ninetales, hold. The Ninetales gracefully maneuvered itself, uttering a low hum as it executed its hold, blocking Dragonite's surprise attack. It then used its magic flash skill to slam into Dragonite. In an instant, a dazzling flash of light erupted from the Ulala Ninetale's body, blasting a powerful beam towards Dragonite. Faced with this close-range attack, Dragonite's expression suddenly changed. With no chance to dodge, it could only absorb the damage from the magical blast. Dragonite's face grimaced under the damage, and it let out a series of painful howls as its body flew backwards, like a parabola traced in the air. With a heavy thud, a powerful gust of air swept up, scattering dust and dirt, obscuring Dragonite's form and obscuring its true condition. Concern crossed Rankai-Anxia's beautiful eyes, and her brows furrowed in a rare frown, a look of unease evident. A moment later, when the dust and smoke cleared, Dragonite reappeared. It rose from the ground in a somewhat awkward manner, its eyes filled with rage as it glared at the Ulala Ninetales, becoming extremely ferocious. Seeing this, Rankai-Anxia breathed a sigh of relief. Although Dragonite wasn't in great shape, even losing most of its stamina, Rankai-Anxia could handle it as long as it wasn't completely incapacitated. After a quick moment of reflection, Rankai-Anxia called out to Dragonite, Dragonite, feathered. Upon hearing Rankai-Anxia's words, Dragonite quickly activated Feathered Feather's abilities to recover from his injuries. However, Fuumakasa Bureau, not far away, had already severely damaged Dragonite, so how could he allow Dragonite to recover so easily? He simply ordered the Alalan Ninetales to quickly approach Dragonite and unleash a freeze beam, attempting to interrupt Dragonite's recovery. Just as the Alalan Ninetales appeared near Dragonite, about to unleash a freeze beam, Dragonite, previously crouching on the ground, suddenly stood up and aimed a scorching flame at the Alalan Ninetales. Jet of Flame. Damaged by the jet of flame, the Alalan Ninetale's snow-white fur turned black, and it let out a painful wail. The entire situation changed in an instant, so quickly that no one could react. No one had expected that Dragonite, previously severely injured, could unleash such a powerful attack in this instant, without even appearing seriously injured. For a moment, the entire main venue fell silent. Chapter 253, The Commander. Nighton Ichidorayu. Seeing this, Rankai-Anxia took a deep breath and quickly directed Dragonite to continue its attack on the Ninetales. Dragonite, Flame Explosion, woo! Dragonite purred softly, its sharp gaze fixed on the nearby Ninetales. From its mouth, a burst of flames shot directly at the Ninetales. Instantly, a large, scorching flame, rising into a wisp of smoke, fiercely slammed into the Ninetales. Flame Explosion. The Ninetales, already suffering from the jet of flames, had no time to dodge and was hit by another large blast, instantly engulfed in blazing flames. Seeing this, Fuumakasa Bureau's face darkened, a look of immense anxiety on his face. He called out to the Ninetales on the field, Ninetales, are you alright? But Alice, the Ulala Ninetales didn't respond to Fuumakasa Bureau's call, but instead howled in agony, as if it had sustained significant injuries from the blazing flames. A moment later, the flames on the Ulala Ninetales died down, and it reappeared on the field. But before it could react, a flaming fist appeared before it, and before its horrified gaze, it smashed directly into its body. A flaming fist. The already wounded Ulala Ninetales could no longer withstand the force, collapsing to the ground, its last remaining fighting ability gone. Fuumakasa Bureau stared at the scene, lost in thought for a long moment, seemingly in disbelief. The Fuso Players Lounge. Iro, the captain of the Fuso Kingdom, gazed at the now overcome battle, his face thick with rage as he cursed furiously, "Baka! That useless Kasaburo! He lost even with a fourfold stat advantage. He should commit seppuku." The other Fuso Kingdom contestants remained silent, but judging by their sullen expressions, their thoughts likely mirrored Ito's. Elsewhere, the Daksha Kingdom team, upon witnessing the scene, felt their hearts settle. They breathed a sigh of relief, their tense expressions gradually relaxing, a sense of relief evident. On the battlefield, the match continued. Perhaps due to the recent incident, Fuma Kasaburo was still struggling, his Pokemon commands becoming increasingly erroneous, and he was soon defeated by Rankyangsha. Although Rankyangsha failed to defeat all 6 opponents and had to make 2 Pokemon substitutions mid-match, she managed to win the match without any losses, earning enthusiastic cheers from the entire main venue. Hearing the cheers coming from the stadium, Rankyangsha slowly collected her Pokemon and returned to the Daksha player lounge. Immediately afterwards, the second individual match between Daksha and Fuso began. Everyone thought for a moment, and in order to prevent any unexpected situations that would lead to a loss to Fuso, they unanimously decided to let Lu Feng play. Faced with such a decision, Lu Feng did not say anything, but just nodded slightly and went on the court directly. The player for Fuso's second game was their captain, Ito. Ito looked at the young man opposite with an indifferent expression, and thinking of the defeat in Atlantis in the past, he clenched his hands involuntarily, and his expression became extremely cold. He stared at Lu Feng intently, and said in a cold tone, "We meet again, this time I will let you experience the pain of failure." Lu Feng raised his head and glanced at Ito, with a very surprised expression in his eyes, but he did not say anything. Seeing both competitors in position, the referee slowly raised his flag and waved it down, loudly declaring, "Match begin." At the referee's call, the entire spectators in the Hoenn arena held their breath, their gaze fixed on the field, eager to watch the action. After the match signal was given, both teams exchanged glances, each taking out their Pokeballs and sending out their Pokemon. Ito gently pressed a button on his Pokeball, releasing a humanoid Pokemon resembling a samurai, clad in dark red armor and with blades strapped to its arms. This was a Steel and Dark-type Pokemon, Commander, Ito's long-cultivated ace. Lu Feng's Pokemon was his own Red Gyarados. Its large eyes glared directly at Commander, radiating a powerful fighting spirit. From Commander's aura, Red Gyarados knew it was a worthy opponent, roughly on its level, both lacking the ability to reach the level of a king, only lacking the ability to comprehend auras. Commander stared warily at the Red Gyarados, his gaze filled with a sharp, cold, emotionless intensity. Lu Feng and Ito gave commands almost simultaneously, mobilizing both Pokemon. "Fire spray, slash!" The Red Gyarados roared, its mouth gathering into a searing stream of flames. With boundless fury, it launched towards Commander, who was not far away. Commander gazed at the incoming blaze, feeling the intense heat and scorching heat. His eyes lit up with a cold glint. He swiftly ran towards the Red Gyarados, raising his arm and slashing with his sharp blade. In an instant, Commander slashed through the flames, braving the onslaught, advancing towards the Red Gyarados. Boom! A moment later, Commander successfully cleaved through the flames, revealing a dark, scorched mark on his body. He leaped in front of the Red Gyarados, his face expressionless as he raised his blade and slashed fiercely at it. Roar! Red Gyarados, feeling the pain radiating from its body, unleashed an involuntary roar, unleashing a volley of flames at Commander at close range. Commander's expression shifted slightly as he gazed at the incoming flames. He tried to dodge, but found the path blocked by the Red Gyarados' massive body. At that moment, Commander had no chance of dodging the flaming onslaught. Ito frowned slightly and shouted to Commander, Nighton Ichiryu. Commander took a deep breath, straightened his body, and leaped into the air. Raising his right arm, he recalled his combat techniques and slashed through the incoming flames. In that instant, the crimson torrent of flame seemed to be cut in half, shattered. Countless spectators gasped at this scene, their faces filled with profound emotion, speechless for a long time, as if completely stunned by Commander's move. Lu Feng looked at Commander, who had already escaped the Red Gyarados' encirclement, and fell into deep thought. If he was not mistaken, Commander's fighting skills were probably the result of Iro combining them with the ancient sword art of Fuso. It seems that Fuzo's sword art has its merits. I could collect these and let Garkemp improve them, Lu Feng thought for a moment and said silently. At this thought, Lu Feng slowly came to his senses, a smile on his face, and said, Gyarados, Dragon Dance. Chapter 254, Second Stage Nilin. Advance to the finals. Upon hearing Lu Feng's command, the red Gyarados radiated a powerful aura and began to sway its massive body in place, performing an intense, mysterious, and powerful dance. Dragon Dance. Instantly, under the influence of Dragon Dance, the red Gyarados' aura surged, becoming even more profound and terrifying, resembling a ferocious and tyrannical beast. Ito sensed the red Gyarados' presence and his expression changed drastically. He quickly commanded Commander to attack, attempting to interrupt the red Gyarados' Dragon Dance. Commander, Wave of Evil. As he spoke, Commander crossed his arms over his chest, emanating a terrifying aura filled with malevolence and radiating towards the red Gyarados' position. Wave of Evil. Seeing the Wave of Evil about to descend, Lu Feng said calmly, Red Gyarados, take the Wave of Evil and continue with Dragon Dance. The red Gyarados groaned, its face pained as it took the Wave of Evil and continued with Dragon Dance. Ito watched the red Gyarados on the field. Seeing it had completed a Dragon Dance amplification, his face gradually turned pale. After a moment of silence, he ordered Commander to continue his attack. Commander stepped on the ground and quickly approached the red Gyarados. He once again used the Nighton Ichidarai that had just astonished everyone, slashing down at the red Gyarados. Gyarados, hold. Lu Feng saw Commander's attack about to land, sensing the immense power within it. He quickly halted the red Gyarados' movements and used hold, attempting to dodge the blow. Hearing Lu Feng's words, the red Gyarados' massive body gradually stopped, and it used hold, blocking Commander's sharp blade at the critical moment. Reverse scale. Seeing Commander appear before the red Gyarados, Lu Feng's eyes gleamed, and he took the opportunity to shout loudly. Iro, standing nearby, heard this and immediately shouted to Commander, Commander, get out of the way. Commander's black eyes flickered slightly at Iro's command. Just as he was about to turn to avoid the red Gyarados, he met its fiery red gaze. Overwhelmed by the threat, his body froze for a moment. In that instant, the red Gyarados went berserk, swung its massive tail, and slashed at Commander with bloodshot eyes. Because of his pause, Commander missed the perfect opportunity to evade the furious red Gyarados' attack. He was forced to take it head-on. Boom! Boom! A terrifying roar echoed, and the entire main venue inevitably shook, a slight tremor resounding. Countless clouds of dust rose, and smoke gradually filled the air. In a matter of moments, the entire arena was shrouded in thick dust and sand, obscuring the view of the entire battleground and leaving everyone anxiously waiting. But during this wait, the battlefield was far from peaceful. Instead, it was engulfed in a fierce battle. After an indeterminate amount of time, the dust covering the battlefield, affected by the red Gyarados' water cannon ability, gradually began to dissipate, revealing the battlefield once again. Meanwhile, Commander his body covered in wounds of varying sizes, had become somewhat languid. He gasped for breath, standing solemnly in a corner of the battlefield, warily watching the red Gyarados nearby. The red Gyarados' eyes were crimson, its aura becoming incredibly ferocious. Its body, also covered in wounds, was in a state of panic, unleashing various abilities in all directions. This revealed the sheer intensity of the previous battle. Ito observed the red Gyarados carefully for a moment, a smile curling his lips. He knew full well that the red Gyarados before him was suffering from the after effects of its inverse scale attack, entering a state of confusion. Not wanting to miss this opportunity, Ito took a deep breath and immediately ordered Commander to attack red Gyarados, hoping to seize this opportunity and defeat it directly. Commander, continuous Commander nodded and quickly approached red Gyarados, just as he was about to use the blade on his arm to launch a series of slashes at it. But before he could strike, Lu Feng's voice rang out, instantly bringing a moment of clarity to the confused red Gyarados. It turned its attention to Commander and launched a counterattack. Gyarados, two-stage reverse scale. Red Gyarados let out a low cry, and before its confusion had subsided, it used its reverse scale ability again, attacking Commander. Under the watchful eyes of the crowd, red Gyarados, using its two-stage reverse scale and the amplification provided by Dragon Dance, slammed its massive head into Commander. Commander, struck by this sudden attack, felt a sharp pain in his body and flew away involuntarily, like a kite with a broken string. At the same time, Red Gyarados gathered immense energy in its mouth and launched a powerful beam of light at the spot where Commander was about to fall, carrying a terrifying energy attack. A destructive beam. The next moment, the destructive beam descended, and Commander let out a mournful wail. White smoke emanated from his body as he collapsed to the ground, his last remaining fighting ability gone. Gazing at the abrupt end of the battle on the battlefield, everyone was stunned, their mouths slightly open, and silence settled in. What's going on? I must have seen it right. How could that confused Gyarados still be able to perform a scale reverse? Wait, my mind is spinning, I haven't reacted yet. How did the battle end so suddenly? Wasn't Red Gyarados just confused, and Commander was about to finish it off? Something's wrong. Gazing at the now calm battlefield, the silent spectators gradually regained their composure, swallowing their saliva, their faces filled with disbelief. Recalling what had happened, everyone had assumed Red Gyarados was doomed to lose, but they hadn't expected Red Gyarados to stage a last-ditch counterattack against Commander. This had caught everyone by surprise. This Red Gyarados is quite something, contestants from various countries thought to themselves, their gazes fixed on the Red Gyarados on the field. Hearing the chatter around them, Feng maintained a remarkably calm expression. He gazed at Ito with interest and said, "Send out your next Pokémon?" Hearing Feng's calm words, Ito clenched his fists, his eyes gleaming with anger. He silently retracted Commander and sent out his second Pokémon. But the Red Gyarados was no match at this point, easily overwhelmed. After all, the Red Gyarados' characteristic was overconfidence. Combined with the boost from Dragon Dance and the additional boost from defeating Commander, it grew stronger with each battle, gradually reaching its peak. Ito's remaining Pokémon were still far behind Commander, making it impossible to stop the Red Gyarados. Time quickly passed, and Feng successfully won the second individual match. Ito looked at Feng's departing back with reluctance, and the whole person looked a little depressed. A few minutes later, the ring match between Daxia Kingdom and Fuso Kingdom began. This time the defending side was Fuso Kingdom, and the attacking side was Daxia Kingdom. Since several of Ito's Pokémon had just been severely injured and defeated by the Red Gyarados, they could not participate in the ring match at all. Feng glanced at the remaining players of Fuso Kingdom, and seeing that there were no opponents worthy of his attack, he did not participate, but gave the ring to his teammates to let them show their strength. After a fierce confrontation, the contestant from Daxia Kingdom finally won the game with the help of Super Evolution. Here, Daxia Kingdom defeated Fuso Kingdom and successfully advanced to the finals. Chapter 255, The Bald Eagle Financial Group's Conspiracy, The God About to Escape. The crescent moon was like a hook, and the night was hazy. A gentle evening breeze blew across the mountains and forests, bringing a touch of coolness to the summer night. The fragrance of the surrounding wild grasses and flowers wafted in the wind, filling every corner of the Blue Star continent. Just as the Nations League was drawing to a close, with only one day left before the finals, in the Blue Star continent, the Bald Eagle Federation, a special meeting was taking place in a brightly lit, hidden room of an ancient manor. Many elderly men in black suits sat around an oval table, their faces solemn, as if shrouded in layers of gloom. If anyone from the Bald Eagle Federation were present, they would undoubtedly recognize the identities of these elderly men. These elderly men in this secret meeting were none other than the Jebel leaders who controlled the Bald Eagle Federation from behind the scenes. As the host who convened everyone for a meeting, Old Rockefeller glanced around the round table, looked at the silent people, and said in a low voice, "Gentlemen, I wonder what you think about the League of Nations that is about to end." Hearing Old Rockefeller's words, Old Morgan and Old DuPont looked at each other, then looked at Rothschild not far away, frowned slightly, and said expressionlessly, "Mr. Rockefeller, what do you mean by this? Isn't the League of Nations something we planned in advance? Do you, the Rockefeller family, want to go back on your word?" Some of the Jebel heads around who were invited and whose strength was slightly weaker than the four major chaebals couldn't help but change their expressions and talked in a low voice. Old Rockefeller, hearing the two men's questions, shook his head, gracefully lifted the wine glass from the table, gently sipped the mellow red wine, and said softly, "Relax, Old Morgan. My Rockefeller family certainly won't be the treacherous villain." After hearing this, The others' expressions didn't change, but their eyes all flashed with sarcasm, as if they had heard a funny joke. Ha! Capital is bloody. Any capital that wasn't treacherous has probably been eaten to the bone. Old Rockefeller seemed to sense the gazes, but he didn't take it seriously. Instead, he continued, originally, we used our influence to manipulate the Bald Eagle Federation into forming the Blue Star Alliance. We intended to share in the benefits of the new era by winning the Internation League, but now, due to the appearance of that damned mega-evolution, the outcome of the Internation League is likely to be completely different from our original plan. I think you all find it unacceptable. Everyone around the round table nodded silently, their faces grimace. Their original plan was to use Z moves to win the Internation League, establish the Bald Eagle Federation as the dominant force in the Blue Star Alliance, and secretly leverage their influence to extend their family's influence into the new era, perhaps even further. However, they hadn't anticipated the emergence of a mega-evolution capable of countering Z moves, perhaps even surpassing their power, in the Great Xia Kingdom. This caught the Chaebols off guard. The head of Rothschild showed a wise look in his eyes, and asked meaningfully, Old Rockefeller, stop talking nonsense. I think you called us here today because you must have made all the preparations. Don't waste everyone's time. After hearing this, Old Rockefeller raised the glass in his hand, gestured to him, and then slowly said, since Mr. Rothschild has spoken, I will make it short. Immediately afterwards, Old Rockefeller suppressed his smile, glanced solemnly at the people on either side, and said in a deep voice, if the victory of the Nations League goes as we originally planned, then everyone will be happy. But if it deviates from our original plan, I hope you can help me to pull the Great Xia Kingdom out of its leadership position in the alliance. Everyone heard Old Rockefeller's words and asked in confusion, Mr. Rockefeller, we don't quite understand what you mean. Given the current strength of the Great Xia Kingdom, we simply cannot challenge it. This is not the same as it was over 100 years ago. If we want to dethrone it, it's simply unrealistic. Old Rockefeller didn't show any anger at all. Instead, he smiled mysteriously and said meaningfully, what if we could make it like it was 100 years ago? In an instant, as Old Rockefeller finished speaking, everyone looked up, expressions of incomparable horror on their faces. After a brief silence, DuPont said in disbelief, Mr. Rockefeller, what you're saying is simply impossible. No country or organization currently possesses such power, indeed. No country or organization possesses such power, Old Rockefeller murmured softly, his head hanging low. Then, looking directly at Old Rockefeller, he said, but what if this attack wasn't from a human, but from a god? Huh? Everyone stared at Old Rockefeller in confusion, their brows furrowed, wondering what he meant. Old Rockefeller, what do you mean by that? Old Morgan asked, his expression curious. The others, though silent, shared Morgan's expression, quietly awaiting his response. Old Rockefeller chuckled softly, but instead of directly answering Morgan's question, he asked an unrelated question. Gentlemen, do you remember the Orange Islands from a while ago? Do you still have any recollection of the divine powers of the spirit world? Everyone nodded gravely, their eyes filled with fear, and remained silent for a long time. After a moment's silence, DuPont asked doubtfully, Old Rockefeller, could you possibly find a deity to personally deal with the Great Xia Kingdom? Rockefeller wiped his pocket watch with his right hand and said intriguingly, I don't need to look for it. There's a sealed deity within the Great Xia Kingdom. Old Rockefeller, could that deity you're talking about be? Rothschild muttered, suddenly remembering the news he'd received some time ago. Rockefeller nodded. After seeing Old Rockefeller nod, Old Morgan and Old DuPont said angrily, Old Rockefeller, I think you must be crazy. According to the information in the seal, the god has already fallen. If he is released, we will inevitably suffer, tisk. If we can leave early and wait until the god leaves, we will return to the Blue Star continent. By then, what force on the entire continent can be stronger than us? Besides, human forces outside cannot come to Blue Star. This is a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. Think about it, gentlemen. This is a benefit far greater than hundreds of times. Perhaps it will even allow our family's reach to spread across the entire continent. Old Rockefeller sneered, somewhat disdainful of the words of Old Morgan and Old DuPont. But, the head of a less powerful Jebel hesitated, wanting to say something. But Old Rockefeller interrupted him, speaking with eloquence, no buts. Gentlemen, I know what you're thinking, but you must understand that success requires the necessary costs. Think about it. If that deity is completely destroyed, then every inch of land on the continent will bear a mark. Compared to the overall benefit of the continent, a small initial investment is insignificant. Besides, we don't necessarily have to go that far. After hearing old Rockefeller's words, everyone fell silent, sitting quietly in their seats, pondering his words. After a long moment, perhaps driven by capitalist greed or perhaps because old Rockefeller's vision was too grand, everyone suddenly looked up and nodded silently, unanimously supporting old Rockefeller's proposal. Seeing everyone's agreement, old Rockefeller laid out his plan in full and instructed each faction to send a number of personnel to the Great Xia Kingdom's location. Their destination was Qi County, Yazhou Province, Great Xia. As for the rest of the chaebols, they seized this opportunity to pack up their valuables and depart Blue Star Continent aboard their chartered planes. Suddenly, the entire continent felt a surge of undercurrents, a storm brewing. As midnight quietly passed, a new day dawned, and the finals of the Nations League finally began. If you are listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means it was downloaded and re-uploaded without effort. We warmly invite you to visit our channel, Fanfic World. There you will find the original version of this story and many other novels of various genres. We look forward to seeing you dive into a world of incredible novels. Chapter 256 Final. May 27th, Monday. After several days of rest and adjustment, the finals of the Nations League finally began. The Great Xia team, led by Feng, arrived at the Xianyun Arena, silently awaiting the start of the finals. It was 8:55 a.m., still an hour before the finals began, but a large crowd had already formed inside the Xianyun Arena. Each one dressed in a different color, holding a different small national flag, they eagerly awaited the start of the match. In the Great Xia Players' Lounge, Feng's gentle gaze swept over each player, and he said warmly, "Today's match is in your hands. No matter the outcome, you are all heroes of our Great Xia nation." Everyone took a deep breath, gradually calming their nerves. Time ticked by, and the match time gradually arrived. Suddenly, two different national flags rose on the large electronic screen in the center of the main venue, with the Versus logo placed in the center. At that moment, the Nations League finals began. Great Xia Kingdom vs. Bald Eagle Federation. As these words appeared on the screen, the entire audience erupted in excitement, cheering on their favorite national teams. A computer randomly selected the order for the competition, team, arena, and individual. Seeing the order displayed on the screen, the Great Xia Kingdom members quietly discussed the situation. Finally, they sent Zhang Dingding and Zhang Liuer to compete in the team competition, Feng to compete in the arena and the first individual match, and Ran Kaiangsha to compete in the second individual match. As the match time approached and Zhang Dingding was about to take the field, Feng gave a timely reminder, "Once the match begins, please Mega Evolve immediately to avoid being targeted by the Bald Eagle Federation later and missing your Mega Evolution opportunity." Everyone nodded silently, taking note of Feng's words. At 10 a.m. sharp, the Nations League competition officially began. The first team match was between Zhang Dingding and George of Bald Eagle. However, George's strength far surpassed Zhang Dingding's, approaching the level of a superstar, and he also used a lineup that was specifically targeted at Zhang Dingding. Despite Zhang Dingding's Mega Evolution, he was still slightly inferior and ultimately lost. Seeing the Great Xia team's initial defeat, the Great Xia audience sitting in silence in the main venue felt as if they had been poured with a bucket of cold water. They were speechless for a long time, and the atmosphere became somewhat depressing. Then, after a 5-minute intermission, the second team match began. This time, Zhang Liuer faced off against the Bald Eagle's Jisbin. With the help of Mega Evolution, Zhang Liuer used Mega Blaziken and Infernape to engage in a fierce battle with Jisbin's three-headed dragon plus Dream Demon combination. The entire battle lasted half an hour and ended in a draw with both sides completely unable to fight. With the first round of the match coming to an end, and the Great Xia team still failing to score, countless Great Xia spectators began to grow anxious. They waved their small national flags and shouted, "Great Xia! We must win! Great Xia! Go!" Hearing the resounding voices and the magnificent scene unfolding before their eyes, the entire Great Xia team fell silent, their hearts heavy. 10 minutes later, the second round of the competition began. Feng glanced at his teammates, balled his fist, and gently pounded his chest. Then he walked out of the lounge and headed towards the competition area. Suddenly, the cheers in the main venue began to change, and countless shouts echoed around him. "Boss Feng! Strengthen our Great Xia, Liu Bao!" The rest of the match depends on you, don't be polite. Kill them all. Lu Feng looked around, silently nodding to the spectators holding the great Xia flags. Without a word, he walked to the competition area. By then, the Bald Eagle Federation's contestant, Slalenki, had already taken his position. After both players had appeared, the referee read out the final rules and signaled the start of the match. Lu Feng and Slalenki exchanged glances, then pulled out their respective Pokeballs and gently pressed the buttons on them, releasing their Pokemon. Lu Feng's Pokemon was Garchomp, while Slalenki's was a near premier, Grunt. Looking at Grunt, Lu Feng couldn't help but frown, a sudden, ominous premonition rising within him, as if on impulse. Sure enough, as the match began, Slalenki directed his Grunt to attack Garchomp in a mutually destructive manner. And just as Grunt was about to lose its ability to fight, he brazenly used his Big Bang attack, attempting to take Garchomp along with it. Fortunately, Lu Feng reacted quickly, commanding Garchomp to use Burrow to avoid a blast, though Garchomp inevitably sustained minor injuries. Watching the scene before him, Lu Feng's expression gradually grew colder, his eyes filled with a chill. Seeing that the detonation of the ghastly hadn't dislodged Garchomp, Slalenki's eyes showed a hint of regret, and he dispatched his second Pokemon, a Rhydon, roughly at the level of a novice Quasi-King. Lu Feng glanced deeply at Slalenki, gradually understanding the Bald Eagle Federation's plans, and a decision was instantly made. Lu Feng commanded Garchomp to soar into the air, attacking Rhydon from a distance using moves like Dragon Star Swarm. Unable to reach Garchomp and unable to fly, Rhydon was quickly defeated by Garchomp's Earthquake. Seeing this, Slalenki shook his head slightly and silently retracted his Rhydon. At this point, he was certain that Lu Feng had seen through all his intentions and understood the Bald Eagle Alliance's plans. After a brief moment of reflection, Slalenki abandoned his self-destruction strategy and dispatched his strongest Lizard King to challenge Lu Feng's Garchomp. Although Garchomp was at a disadvantage against the Lizard King, its immense strength, combined with its corresponding ancient swordsmanship, easily defeated Slalenki. Seeing that Lu Feng's Garchomp still had the strength to fight, Slalenki reluctantly left the battlefield. With Slalenki's departure, the Bald Eagle Alliance's second challenger followed. Chapter 257 Donald, no one knows Pokemon battles better than me. The Bald Eagle Federation's second challenger was a blonde, blue-eyed young lady. Compared to Slalenki, her strength was even greater. This was the Bald Eagle Federation's second-in-command, Sasha. Upon entering the arena, she immediately pressed her Pokeball and released her Pokemon. With a blazing red light, an anthropomorphic flower Pokemon, its lower body structured like stems and leaves, and its head resembling a red flower, appeared on the field. This was the fairy-type Pokemon, Lady Flower, whose strength was roughly between the Quasi-King and King levels. Lady Flower, Lu Feng muttered to himself, observing Lady Flower across from him carefully. He knew this was probably a tactic used by the Bald Eagle Federation to maximize the depletion of his Pokemon's power. Judging by the current situation, Garchomp had already expended considerable energy defeating Slalenki's 3 Pokemon. If you were to face Lady Flower, whose attributes were countered, it would be a disaster. While it's possible to rely on strength to counterattack Garchomp, it would also be a significant burden for Gardevoir. After a moment of silent reflection, Lu Feng finally took advantage of Lady Flower's inability to launch an attack, pulled out his Pokeball, retrieved Garchomp, and sent out his own Gardevoir. Seeing Lu Feng replace Garchomp, Sasha's expression was sullen, a hint of disappointment evident. After calming down, Sasha realized the Bald Eagle Federation's plan was unsuccessful, so she directed Lady Flower to use poison, attempting to inflict poison damage on Gardevoir. Lu Feng calmly observed Lady Flower's actions and instructed Gardevoir to use teleport to dodge the poison attack. At the same time, he instructed Gardevoir to unleash magical flame to counterattack Lady Flower. Gardevoir gathered its hands in front of it, radiating a searing flame that glowed crimson as it attacked Lady Flower's position. Due to the disparity in power between the two, it wasn't long before Lady Flower could withstand Gardevoir's attacks and fell under its 100,000 volts. Sasha gasped at the sight. Although she had been prepared, she was still shocked by Gardevoir's strength. Can we really defeat him? It doesn't even seem like we're on the same level, Sasha thought to herself. Urged by the referee, Sasha suppressed her distracting thoughts and silently sent out her second Pokemon. Over 10 minutes later, Sasha's final Pokemon fell to Gardevoir's attack. Although she had used a Z move, Sending her windy sprites, cute star crash, she still couldn't defeat Gardevoir. Instead, it seized the opportunity and used magic fire to dispatch her final Pokémon. The surrounding Daxia spectators, watching Lu Feng defeat two Bald Eagle Federation players in quick succession, instantly perked up. Shaking off the dejection from Daxia's recent defeat, they cheered even more frantically for Lu Feng. Lu Feng smiled faintly, looking toward the main venue's stands. He nodded and gestured to the Daxia spectators gathered to cheer him on. Just then, the Bald Eagle Federation's third challenger, their formidable captain, Donald, arrived. With a comical expression on his face, he sauntered to the battleground, glanced at Lu Feng with a hint of disdain, and declared loudly, "Daxia people, prepare to learn. No one understands Pokémon battles better than me." Donald's words struck Lu Feng as strangely familiar, and he couldn't help but look in astonishment at the confident Donald. If it weren't for Donald's appearance being slightly different, Lu Feng would have mistaken him for Comrade Jianguo, the real estate tycoon. Lu Feng shook his head slightly and whispered to Donald across from him, "Send out your Pokémon." Donald's face softened, his expression shifting to a sudden change as he dispatched his first Pokémon. With a gentle chime of a Pokéball, a monster-like Pokémon appeared, covered in hard silver-white armor. 3 slender horns sprouted from its forehead, its eyes were bright blue, its teeth were extremely sharp, and a thick black tail sprouted from its back. It was a steel and rock-type Pokémon, Boscadora, whose power was roughly equivalent to that of a Tenno. Lu Feng observed the Boscadora carefully for a moment, then silently nodded to him. The perfect lines of its body and the unspoken, powerful aura it exuded indicated that Boscadora had been well trained. Boscador, Iron Tail. Donald saw Lu Feng lost in thought and quickly commanded Boscador, hoping to catch him off guard and secure his own victory. Hearing this, Boscador roared, spun around, and swung its tail towards Gardevoir, striking fiercely. Influenced by steel energy, Boscador's tail instantly transformed into a hard silver white, like a long silver whip, carrying all its strength in a terrifying attack. Iron Tail. Lu Feng sensed the terrifying power of this attack, and surprise flashed in his deep eyes. He calmly commanded Gardevoir to dodge. Gardevoir, hearing Lu Feng's command and seeing Boscador's attack about to land, dodged to a nearby position, narrowly avoiding Boscador's attack. Gardevoir, use magic fire continuously. Lu Feng looked at Boscador, who was trying to turn and look for Gardevoir, with a calm expression. Gardevoir nodded slightly, seizing the opportunity to unleash a magical fire blast towards Boscador's location. Instantly, the searing magical flames descended upon Boscador with lightning speed, inflicting immense elemental damage and causing Boscador to let out a howl. Meanwhile, Gardevoir exploited Boscador's bulk and slowness, employing a kite-like tactic, repeatedly attacking Boscador with magical fire from a distance. Moments later, Boscador, enduring several blasts of magical fire, could no longer sustain its weight. Its massive body toppled heavily to the ground, causing the ground to shake for a moment and raising a cloud of dust. Donald considered using Dig to evade Boscador and Earthquake to inflict damage on Gardevoir, but Gardevoir's high perception and its exceptional ability to defend his skills successfully evaded them. As a result, Boscador was completely helpless against Gardevoir. Daxia! How despicable of you! How dare you engage in a head-on battle between men? Donald angrily withdrew Boscador and shouted at Lu Feng with resentment. In his opinion, if Gardevoir hadn't been dodging just now, his Boscador would have definitely defeated it. Hearing Donald's words, Lu Feng couldn't help but raise his eyebrows, and his expression gradually turned cold. Chapter 258. Isn't this just for free? A few minutes later, Donald noticed a change in Lu Feng's expression and, believing his provocation to be effective, secretly delighted. He pulled out his Pokéball and tossed it with all his might, releasing his second Pokémon. The next moment, a gigantic lobster Pokémon with a 5-pointed star on its head and a blue pattern on its chest appeared. It was a water and dark type Scylla, nearing the level of a celestial king. As Scylla appeared, before Donald could issue a command, it noticed Gardevoir nearby and suddenly became aggressive, brandishing its massive claws and charging at it. What an aggressive Pokémon! Lu Feng silently sighed as he caught sight of the incoming Scylla. He turned to Gardevoir, telling it to avoid the Scylla's attacks. Gardevoir, receiving Lu Feng's command, stared at Scylla quietly, its expression remaining unchanged. As the lobster's attack was about to land, Gardevoir used Shadow Clone, using a combination of real and fake shadows to confuse the attacking lobster, allowing it to easily dodge its blow. At the same time, Gardevoir used its magic leaf ability to counterattack the lobster not far away. In an instant, countless scattered leaves emerged from behind Gardevoir, like a slashing razor blade, hurtling straight towards the lobster. Before it could react, they slammed down hard, inflicting heavy damage. Magic leaf. The lobster felt the pain radiating from its body, and its expression changed drastically, its entire expression instantly frozen, and its aura became even more violent, as if it had suffered considerable damage. Seeing this, Donald's face darkened, and he angrily directed his command at the lobster. Iron Claw Lobster, sneak attack. Upon hearing this, the dark energy within the Iron Claw Lobster surged, and its body transformed into a shadow. It quickly approached Gardevoir, seizing the moment it hadn't reacted and swinging its massive pincers to slash. Gardevoir, as the Iron Claw Lobster's attack landed, Gardevoir let out a mournful cry, its body unconsciously flying backwards, slamming heavily to the ground. Donald's eyes lit up with joy, and he said to Feng with a hint of mockery, "Daksha people. See? A real fight is a man's romance." Feng ignored Donald and looked at Gardevoir expressionlessly. Using the power of wave guidance, he found that Gardevoir was not seriously injured except for a slight breath. He couldn't help but breathe a sigh of relief. Then, Feng's eyes flashed coldly, and he spoke to Gardevoir in an icy voice. "Gardevoir, a thought will bloom." Gardevoir rose from the ground, its skirt inevitably stained by dust. Hearing Feng's command, Gardevoir looked at the approaching lobster with a hint of anger. Under the watchful eyes of the crowd, it unleashed its long-trained combination of moves. In an instant, countless falling leaves, imbued with the shimmering attack of telekinesis and magic, and enveloped in the power of the Eye of Miracle, blossomed into a beautiful spectacle, pouring down towards the lobster. The lobster's ferocious and brutal eyes, upon seeing the attack hurtling towards it, suddenly showed a look of fear, and it tried to dodge the terrifying attack. Clearly, the lobster had sensed the power contained in the attack and knew it was beyond its ability to withstand. But before it could react, Yin Huakai's attack descended, slamming into it, inflicting immense damage. Under the powerful impact, the lobster's body was involuntarily thrown backwards, like a kite with its string cut. Boom! Boom! With a resounding sound of a heavy object crashing to the ground, the lobster's entire strength was instantly drained, and it fell unconscious. Donald stared at the lobster on the field, his pupils constricting slightly, his mouth unconsciously wide open, and he fell into trance. He could never have imagined that his lobster, which had been fine just a moment ago, would be defeated in the blink of an eye. After a brief silence, he looked at Feng nearby with a complicated expression, his contempt gradually subsiding. Donald silently took out a heavy ball, a conflicted expression on his face, as if he was debating whether to send out his Pokémon. Under the referee's constant urging, Donald steeled himself and tossed his Pokéball, sending out his third Pokémon, Scaladron. Compared to the previous two Pokémon, this scaled dragon was even more powerful. Judging from its imposing aura, it had already entered the realm of a celestial king. Feng gazed at the scaled dragon before him, observing it carefully with a look of surprise on his face. He was somewhat surprised that a Blue Star trainer had acquired a celestial king Pokémon so quickly. After all, for ordinary Pokémon to reach the Celestial King realm, they needed a corresponding Celestial King aura, which was no easy feat. After careful observation, Feng couldn't help but express a strange expression, a faint smile unconsciously curling up at the corners of his mouth. His observations of the scaled dragon revealed that this Celestial King-level scaled dragon didn't seem to care much about Donald. In its gaze, Feng saw disdain and indifference. While its aura was powerful, it also revealed more laziness. This armored dragon in front of me hasn't been tamed yet? It seems Donald must have used some trickery to capture it, Feng thought to himself, his chin in his hand. Facing a Pokémon I can't command? Isn't that a waste? Feng looked at Donald across from him, doubting if he was the comrade I sent, not a typo, just to avoid failing the review. His expression became extremely strange. Donald looked at Armored Dragon with some anger and shouted at it, "Armored Dragon, Flame Fist." As Donald finished speaking, the dragon lay on the ground without even raising its head, snoring soundly, completely oblivious to Donald's thoughts. Feng looked at the scene before him with amusement, and quickly directed Gardevoir to attack Armored Dragon with a series of skills such as Magic Flash and Moon Force. A few minutes later, under Gardevoir's relentless bombardment, the will-less armored staff dragon lost its ability to fight. sending Donald into a furious rage. But no matter how angry he was, victory in the tournament had already fallen to the Great Xia Kingdom. Countless Great Xia spectators, witnessing the scene, were filled with immense excitement and elation, raising their small national flags high in the air to cheer on Lu Feng and the Great Xia team. Elsewhere, on an island some distance from the Blue Star continent, several chaebols from the Bald Eagle Federation, upon hearing the news, their faces suddenly darkened. Judging from the results of the tournament, they knew the Bald Eagle Federation was doomed to defeat the Great Xia team, a situation they could not reverse. After all, Lu Feng would undoubtedly participate in one of the next two individual matches, and victory in the remaining one was irrelevant. Regardless of whether the Bald Eagle Federation won or not, they would not be able to surpass the Great Xia Kingdom in the overall score. Regarding this, old Rockefeller exchanged a glance with the others. After a moment's silence, he slowly took out another communicator, contacted his assigned personnel, and began their pre-planned plan. In an instant, in the Great Xia Kingdom, in Qi County, Yazhou Province, at the ancient ruins of Chaoj City, countless tourists from the Bald Eagle Federation, dressed in black, accompanied by their powerful Pokémon, entered the ancient, dilapidated star-picking tower and launched a relentless attack. As time passed, the seals surrounding the star-picking tower gradually broke, and a dark, powerful, and sinister aura emanated. The behemoth previously housed within the seal suddenly opened its fierce, crimson eyes and let out a sharp, whining cry. It was like the prelude to a storm. The weather around Qi County suddenly changed, plunging into an extremely oppressive and dreary atmosphere. Chapter 259 Winning the Championship. Dark Luigi escapes. At noon, the scorching summer sun blazed directly into the Hoenn arena. As Donald's 6 Pokémon lost their combat abilities, their portraits faded to a grayish hue, signaling victory in the first individual match of the third round of the finals, a victory for the Great Xia Kingdom. Countless Great Xia spectators applauded and cheered, the air thick with the joy of victory. Hearing the cheers from all around, Lu Feng's bangla roared loudly, a sound like thunder from the heavens, resonating through the entire main venue. Although the match wasn't over yet, and the Great Xia team hadn't reached 5 points, it was clear to everyone that the championship of this Internation League had already fallen to the Great Xia. Even if the Bald Eagle Federation team could win the second individual match, they would still be 1 point behind the Great Xia, thus missing out on the championship. Lu Feng looked up at the dejected Donald across from him, smiled faintly, and slowly retracted his bangla, heading towards the Great Xia Players' Lounge. The players from other countries who were watching the game looked at Lu Feng's departing back with complicated expressions, and couldn't help but feel a lot of emotions in their hearts. No one expected that it would be Lu Feng who would appear in this national league and help Daxia turn the tide and let them reach the championship. If it weren't for Lu Feng's appearance, facing the many teams from various countries that joined forces to snipe them, it would be hard to say whether the Daxia team could reach the top 16. Silently watching his departing back, everyone sighed inwardly, thinking quietly about the next move. They knew very well that according to the relevant agreements of various countries, Daxia, who won the league championship, would definitely have a great say and weight in the Blue Star Alliance to be established. For the future interests of their own countries, it might be necessary to repair the relationship with Daxia. Lu Feng didn't quite understand the thoughts of these players from various countries, and he didn't intend to pay attention. At this moment, he had returned to the exclusive lounge for Daxia players. He glanced at his teammates with remarkable composure, exhaled a long sigh, and said, "Everyone, you've done your job well." Wu Feng and the others looked at him with smiles on their faces, their bodies trembling slightly as they surrounded Lu Feng with immense excitement. They took a deep breath, shook his hand solemnly, and said in a deep voice, "Lu Feng, thank you so much for bringing the league championship back to Daxia. Daxia will never forget your contribution." Hearing their words, Lu Feng calmly shook his head, his gaze penetrating, and replied, "This championship is not only my achievement, but the hard work of all the team members as well." For a moment, everyone was stunned at these words, then burst into laughter, and the atmosphere became incredibly harmonious. Time slipped by, and in a blink of an eye, it was 3 p.m. at that moment. The podium at Hoenn Arena had been set up, and preparations were underway for the final awards ceremony. As the bright red Great Xia flag rose in the center of the Hoenn Arena and the resounding Great Xia national anthem blared, Lu Feng and his companions, invited by the host, were about to step up to the podium to claim the championship trophy. Woo woo, But before they could even begin to move, a sharp, whistling sound echoed from the sky, and the weather suddenly changed. In an instant, the once clear and bright sky was suddenly overcast. Countless pale blue arcs of lightning flickered and hissed, filling the air with a terrifying energy aura, making the entire venue feel extremely oppressive. The wind howled, and the rain poured down, creating a scene of doomsday, filling all who witnessed it with a sense of unease and inexplicable panic. Due to the sudden change in weather, the league organizing committee, after consultation, temporarily suspended the awards ceremony, forcing all players and spectators to patiently await further notice. What's going on? Did they say it would be sunny today? This is really a bit of a bummer. A member of the audience from the Great Xia Kingdom, looking up at the overcast sky, couldn't help but mutter. Oh. Who said it wasn't? Will the award ceremony be postponed? Another audience member said with some dissatisfaction. The rest of the audience who were still waiting for the award ceremony also began to talk about whether the award ceremony could go on smoothly. In the lounge of the Great Xia Kingdom, Feng looked up at the dark clouds in the sky and the heavy rain. Feeling the breath coming from it, he felt an inexplicable irritation in his heart, as if something had happened. From this rainy weather, he sensed a powerful and familiar power, but for a moment he couldn't remember the source of this power, which made him feel a little uneasy. As if noticing something strange about Feng, Zhang Liuer and the others asked curiously, Feng, what are you looking at? This downpour isn't going to stop anytime soon. Why don't you go get some rest? Feng frowned at the words and turned towards them, saying worriedly, I don't know if it's just an illusion, but I feel like this rain is a little strange. Chairman Wu, could you please ask if anything's happened? Zhang Dingding and the others looked at each other, their expressions changing inexplicably. Feng, you're probably overthinking it. Isn't a sudden change in the weather normal? Jin Ren was silent for a moment, then smiled humorously. The rest of the team also spoke up, urging him not to worry. After all, a sudden change in the weather was just a normal occurrence, nothing to fuss about. Despite the pleas, Feng simply shook his head, unwaveringly insisting that Feng investigate. His attitude was resolute. After a moment's reflection, Feng nodded gravely, reluctantly agreeing to Feng's request. He then took out the Great Xia Kingdom's newly developed new generation communicator and began contacting his friends in the weather system back home, inquiring about the situation. 10 minutes later, Feng, with a heavy expression, set down the communicator and approached the group with an anxious look. Seeing Feng's pale face, Ran Kaiangsha asked with some concern, President Wu, has something happened? Feng's body trembled slightly at their inquiries, and he spoke in a hoarse voice, the dark Lugia sealed in the Chaod ruins has escaped, Feng. Everyone. Instantly, as Feng's voice fell, the entire players' lounge fell silent. Everyone was silent, seemingly overwhelmed by Feng's news, unable to recover for a long time. Several dozen seconds passed. Feng clenched his fists and asked in a deep voice, President Wu, how did the Dark Lugia break free? It's said that some foreign tourists visiting Qi County accidentally strayed into the ruins, causing the remaining star-picking tower to collapse, releasing the Dark Lugia, Feng replied, gritting his teeth. The guard station near the ruins appeared to have been attacked, leaving them with no time to protect the seal. Now, that Dark Lugia is wreaking havoc over Qi County. After hearing Feng's explanation, everyone understood that this was a long-planned operation, not a mere accident. How could they do this? Don't they know the consequences of releasing a sealed god? Chu Zhu said angrily, her hands falling limply. Especially one hostile to humanity. Have they forgotten what happened at the Orange Islands? After receiving this information, Feng sighed deeply and, without waiting for anyone else to speak, left without a backward glance. After walking out of the Xianyun arena, Feng released Risharam and pointed it in the direction of Qi County, Yazhou Province, letting Risharam fly over quickly. Chapter 260 Risharam vs Dark Lugia. In Qi County, Yazhou Province, Great Xia Kingdom, an immense black bird soared through the sky, its jet-black feathers slicing through the dense air as it flapped vigorously. The vibrations of the blackbird's wings occasionally swirled in gusts of fierce wind, bringing immense destructive force. Under the raging force of this hurricane, surrounding houses were completely destroyed, countless boulders and mud were swept skyward, transforming the quiet and peaceful ancient county into shambles of devastation. Furthermore, as if venting its anger and resentment, the newly freed Dark Lugia continuously unleashed terrifying skills and attacks, wreaking havoc throughout the Cheoj ruins. Simultaneously, influenced by a mysterious force, a drizzle began to fall from the sky, and within a short time, the sudden downpour transformed into a violent storm. Soon, the entire Yuzhou province was engulfed in the torrential downpour. Under the command of Daxia officials, countless residents of Qi County and other parts of Yuzhou province moved in an orderly manner toward the surrounding evacuation facilities, attempting to escape the unexpected disaster. Live broadcasts of the situation in Qi County and Yuzhou province were broadcast live by local television stations. This quickly spread throughout Daxia, shocking countless Daxia citizens and causing a great deal of turmoil. Oh my god, what kind of Pokémon is that? Why did it suddenly appear in Daxia? Are you sure this isn't a special effect from a movie studio? Why is there such a terrifying creature in Daxia? I was kind of gloating over what happened to the Orange Islands a few months ago, but now it's all over. Holy crap. Hey brother, when you mentioned the Orange Islands, I seem to remember. Isn't this Pokémon in front of me the Lugia that appeared in the Orange Islands incident? But the color seems a little off. Could it be an odd-colored Pokémon? Hey. Shouldn't we be thinking about how to solve this problem right now? Why are you focusing on odd-colored Pokémon? I just want to know what we should do next. In an instant, as the words appeared in a certain barrage, countless Daxia netizens fell silent, revealing extremely bitter expressions and looking a little anxious. In contrast to these Daxia netizens, other nations that received information from Daxia displayed expressions of gloating, seemingly delighted with what had happened to Daxia. Some radical figures even called for Daxia's demise. They knew that after the devastation of Dark Lugia, Daxia's power would inevitably suffer, and they might seize this opportunity to gain more benefits from Daxia. Consequently, when Daxia appealed to neighboring nations for help, with the exception of a few nations with whom it had close ties, the others consistently declined, showing no interest in offering assistance, more intent on watching the show. Faced with this situation, Daxia officials, after a brief deliberation, dispatched numerous exceptionally skilled trainers to attack the Dark Lugia entrenched near the Cheoj ruins in Qi County, attempting to drive it out of Daxia territory. However, due to the disparity in power, this plan ultimately failed. Torrential rain poured down, the sky darkening and gloomy, casting a pessimistic and hopeless look upon the eyes of all the people of Daxia, who had been so eager for something. Based on relevant data, everyone in Daxia knew that if the storm could not be stopped soon and the Dark Lugia could not be expelled, the entire country might be at risk of extinction. 3 hours after the Dark Lugia was freed, the water level across Yuzhou province rose rapidly as the storm continued to rage, gradually submerging the lower floors of houses, rising at a terrifying rate. High-rise buildings near Qi County were completely destroyed, and floodwaters continued to pour into the evacuation facilities. Many Qi County residents stared in fear at the Dark Lugia emerging from the outside, expressions of deep despair on their faces. The Dark Lugia fluttered its wings and hovered around. As if sensing a human presence, its crimson, evil eyes shone with cruelty and violence. It condensed a powerful beam of light from its mouth and fired it directly at the evacuation facilities. Destructive ray. The destructive beam was about to descend, poised to strike the shelter where the crowd had taken refuge. It carried a terrifying energy surge, its power already terrifying, ready to destroy everything. The residents of the shelter, upon witnessing the oncoming glare, turned pale, their faces drained of color. They clutched their loved ones tightly, some resigned to their fate and closed their eyes. Countless Daxia netizens, watching the livestream, fell silent, violently pounding on the objects around them, overcome with grief. They knew that, barring any unforeseen events, the deaths of their compatriots were inevitable. Facing the terrifying power of Dark Lugia, a powerful being known as the God of the Sea, Daxia held little chance of success. In the nick of time, just as the destructive beam was about to reach the shelter, a powerful energy surge surged nearby, and a crimson flame soared into the air. Driven by a massive lightning bolt, it unleashed a powerful flaming attack, and in full view of the crowd, it collided directly with the destructive beam. In an instant, the two powerful skills collided and exploded, unleashing a vast wave of battle, whipping up a powerful gust of wind that shook the entire sturdy shelter, causing it to sway slightly. Countless Daxia citizens within the shelter, hearing the resounding thunder, jolted their heads upwards and peered directly outside, only to be met with an unforgettable sight. Not far from the ferocious, sinister Dark Lugia, a gigantic, graceful white dragon appeared. A trainer, whose face couldn't be seen, stood behind the dragon, directing it in a confrontation with the Dark Lugia. This person was, of course, Feng, who had arrived on Reshiram. Seeing everyone in the shelter safe and sound, he breathed a sigh of relief, then turned his attention to the Dark Lugia. Gazing at the fierce, sinister Dark Lugia, Feng felt a headache and sighed silently. He had originally planned to gather Hoenn and the Lugia from Asia Island after the League ended to reseal the Dark Lugia elsewhere. But before Feng could act, the Dark Lugia was released by a malicious foreign trainer, catching him unawares. Feng took a deep breath and said to Reshiram with a complicated expression, "Reshiram, prepare for battle." Reshiram's bright blue eyes flashed as he stared intently at the Dark Lugia. He let out a hollow roar, readying himself for a sustained battle. Chapter 261, Hoenn, Lugia, help. The sky roared darkly, lightning flashed, a hurricane raged, and torrential rain fell. Feng stood behind Reshiram, using waveguide power to block the falling raindrops. His deep eyes fixed on Dark Lugia, and he spoke in a deep voice, "Reshiram, Blue Flame, greet Dark Lugia first and attract its attention." Reshiram let out a high-pitched howl, his bright blue eyes flickering slightly. His pure white wings spread out in the air, and a powerful aura instantly erupted, gathering beautiful and intense blue flames that shot directly at the nearby Dark Lugia. The blue flames radiated from all directions, gradually enveloping Dark Lugia's body, burning it with a burning force that inflicted considerable damage. Blue Flame. Perhaps having recently escaped, Dark Lugia's combat instincts were somewhat rusty. Unable to evade Reshiram's attack, it let out a sharp cry of pain, a grimace of agony etched across its sinister black face. Seeing that Dark Lugia's attention had been completely drawn, Feng instructed Reshiram not to rush his attack, but rather to lead it away from Daksha's territory. This was to prevent the Great Xia Kingdom from suffering heavy losses in the clash between high legends. A moment later, the azure flames enveloping Dark Lugia vanished, and its once jet-black feathers, scorched by the flames, revealed dark scorch marks and exuded the lingering scent of burning down polyester. Feeling the pain, its crimson, evil eyes shone with murderous intent. Gradually, it materialized, and with a ferocious flap of its massive black wings, it soared towards Reshiram with unstoppable momentum. Divine Bird Strike. Seeing Dark Lugia approaching Reshiram, Feng quickly directed Reshiram to fly a short distance away, dodging Dark Lugia's attacks and guiding it elsewhere. Reshiram, head straight east and lead Dark Lugia to the edge of the continent. Feng glanced back at Dark Lugia from time to time, calmly directing him. Reshiram, sensing Dark Lugia's relentless pursuit, uttered an ethereal voice and nodded, "I understand. I'll lead it to the place you mentioned." As Reshiram finished his words, it spread its white wings, and flames erupted from its divine-like tail as it sped forward at lightning speed. Dark Lugia was stunned for a moment upon seeing Reshiram leave, but upon feeling the wounds on its body, it let out an angry roar and quickly spread its wings, taking to the air, chasing Reshiram. "Dark Lugia, you hit me and then run? Do you think my strength is just for show? Ooh. Dark Lugia, that fleeing white dragon, don't run. Stay and fight me." Hearing the roars from behind him, Feng, through his viridian power, naturally understood their meaning, and his expression became extremely strange. What kind of high-level legend is this? Why is he acting like a fool? Feng thought silently, his mouth twitching from time to time. With the departure of Dark Lugia, the dark clouds and violent storms that had once shrouded Yazhou province, no longer supported by the mysterious power, began to slowly dissipate. The remaining energy drove the remaining dark clouds in the direction of Dark Lugia's departure. "Are we saved?" the people in the shelter cried out in joy as they watched the sky return to a clear blue and the warm sunlight envelop them. "Oh my God. Thank you for that trainer's help." This scene was broadcast live on the TV station and broadcast to the entire internet. Countless people in Daksha breathed a sigh of relief as their tense brows gradually relaxed. But compared to the relaxed citizens of Daksha, the nations caught in the path of Dark Lugia's advance were in a state of distress. As Dark Lugia passed by, the events that had just unfolded in Qi County began to unfold within their borders. What infuriated these gloating foreigners most was that, whether intentionally or not, Feng commanded Reshiram to engage in a prolonged battle with Dark Lugia as soon as Dark Lugia entered their territory. Only after the surrounding landscape had been largely destroyed did he lead Dark Lugia on to the next nation, slowly approaching the continent's edge. The most notable victims included Philly, the Thousand Islands, Fuso, and the Great Cold. Trainers from these nations would have been tempted to attack Lu Feng and Reshiram if they hadn't been unable to defeat them. After about 2 hours, Reshiram and Lu Feng gradually arrived not far from their destination. According to the original world map, they should be within the territory of the Bald Eagle Federation. He paused for a moment to ponder. Lu Feng turned to look at the furious Dark Lugia behind him, pointed in a direction toward Reshiram, and temporarily halted his flight to the continent's edge. Now that we've arrived in a free land, it would be a bit unreasonable not to take Dark Lugia with me to breathe some free air, Lu Feng muttered under his breath, a sly look in his eyes and a strange expression on his face. Not long after, under Lu Feng's guidance, Reshiram appeared above Big Apple City and gradually stopped advancing. Dark Lugia, chasing him, was stunned for a moment when Reshiram suddenly stopped, a puzzled expression on his face. But then, recalling the damage he had just suffered, Dark Lugia flew over in a rage, launching his attack. Instantly, the air above Big Apple City turbulently, and under the influence of a powerful force, it transformed into a massive air vortex that shot towards Reshiram. Cyclone attack. Lu Feng stared at Dark Lugia's attack with a frown. Sensing the terrifying energy contained within, he shouted to Reshiram, "Reshiram, crossfire!" At Reshiram's command, the turbines behind him ignited with searing flames, rapidly spinning and gathering powerful flaming energy. Accompanied by flashes of lightning, they charged directly into Dark Lugia's attack. Cyclone attack versus crossfire. Dark Lugia's signature move versus Reshiram's. Boom! Boom! A violent explosion echoed as the two terrifying attacks collided, illuminating the entire sky in a blanket of white. The remaining battle waves spread in all directions, instantly destroying numerous buildings. Even the torch goddess, a symbol of freedom, was annihilated by the spreading energy. Perhaps Dark Lugia's strength, now freed from its seal, was slowly recovering. Before Lu Feng and Reshiram could react, Dark Lugia opened its crimson eyes and, using its jet-black wings, slashed through the sky, charging at them. Instantly, Dark Lugia unleashed a terrifying murderous aura, stunning Reshiram and slamming fiercely into him. Reshiram's face grimaced with pain, and with a piercing dragon roar, his body slammed into a nearby building. Had Lu Feng not seen the situation and immediately used his wave power to shield himself, the instantaneous collision would have seriously injured him. "Reshiram, are you okay?" Lu Feng turned to look at Reshiram and whispered. Reshiram shook his head slightly, then sent a telepathic message, "I'm fine, but this Lugia's strength is a little strange. It seems countless times stronger than the one we encountered last time." Recalling their previous battle together, Reshiram looked at the Dark Lugia before him and couldn't help but sigh. Sigh. "You said it was all Lugia, so why was the last Lugia so weak?" Reshiram pondered silently. Hearing Reshiram's words, Lu Feng looked up at the Dark Lugia not far away and said in a gloomy voice, "Of course it's because the Dark Lugia is 3 times stronger, and the White Lugia is 10 times weaker. Can you handle it?" Reshiram was silent for a moment, sensing the Dark Lugia's growing aura, and a look of embarrassment appeared on his face. "I just woke up from a deep sleep too, and my strength hasn't recovered much yet." Lu Feng glanced at Reshiram quietly, instantly understanding what he meant. He sighed and said, "Looks like we still need to call for help." Then, Lu Feng pulled 2 feathers of different colors from his backpack and activated them with wave power, shouting, "Ho-oh, Lugia, help!" At that moment, the iridescent feathers, radiating rainbow light, and the silver feathers, gleaming silver, burst into intense light, calling out to 2 locations in the Pokémon world. Chapter 262, Phoenix King. Holy crap! Could it be that my rainbow hero has been poached? As a photographer who roams the world of elves, Ho-Oh possesses numerous habitats. Among them, Cheyenne King Mountain, where Lu Feng last undertook the rainbow hero trial, is one of them. At this moment, as Lu Feng used his rainbow feathers to call for help from his immediate superior, Ho-Oh, resting in the crown snowfields of the Galar region, sensed a shared power. He suddenly opened his eyes and looked toward the Blue Star continent, a puzzled expression on his face. It's that newly emerged continent. If it were calling for help from another region of the elf world it had previously explored, Ho-Oh would understand. But it had no recollection of ever appearing on the Blue Star continent, let alone establishing a lair. Why would a power summoning it from that continent, especially one with the same source as its own, appear? Faced with this situation, Ho-Oh hesitated for a moment, lost in thought. After a while, Ho-Oh slowly took off, flying towards the Blue Star continent, determined to understand the source of this call. On the other side, in the Orange Islands, in the waters near Asia Island, Lugia, previously dormant in the deep sea, felt a familiar surge of power and a call. It turned its head toward the source, a look of sudden realization dawning on its face. Since Feng had previously briefed Lugia, upon receiving his summons, Lugia didn't hesitate like Hoenn. Instead, it flapped its massive wings, rapidly darting from the deep sea toward the blue star continent. Meanwhile, Feng, after extracting 2 feathers and sending a distress signal, directed Reshiram at the Dark Lugia, silently awaiting their arrival. Reshiram's face was sullen, and he exhaled a powerful breath, carrying immense dragon-type energy, which he fired at the nearby Dark Lugia. Dragon breath. Dark Lugia saw the approaching dragon's breath, a hint of contempt flashing across his crimson eyes. He flapped his jet-black wings, condensed a powerful beam of light from his mouth, and slammed directly into the incoming blue-purple dragon's breath. Destructive ray, boom, boom. Accompanied by a resounding explosion, the terrifying aftermath of the battle spread outward, destroying many of Big Apple's remaining buildings and stirring up a powerful cloud of dust that enveloped the entire environment. In an instant, the once prosperous Big Apple was razed to the ground by the battle between 2 high legends, leaving only scattered boulders, a devastated landscape, and occasional plumes of smoke rising. The battle raged for a while longer. Reshiram's aura began to wane, his eyes betraying a hint of fatigue. His body was covered in wounds, his pristine white feathers smeared with mud. Sensing through the power of the wave guide, Feng asked with some concern, "Reshiram, can you still hold on?" He knew full well that facing such a high-intensity battle, Reshiram, who had only just recovered, would not be able to sustain the fight for long. After all, the Dark Lugia before him was not on par with the 3 legendary birds. Although its strength had not yet fully recovered, it was no match for the Dark Lugia. A Dark Lugia was countless times stronger than a normal Lugia. Upon hearing Feng's words, Reshiram uttered an ethereal voice and replied in a deep voice, "I can still hold on for a while." Despite the ferocious battle, Reshiram did not retreat, but continued to fight the Dark Lugia. As a high legend, he couldn't just surrender. If he was defeated by a Dark Lugia, he would have no place in the high legend community. "Reshiram, don't I have any dignity? Even if they wanted to escape, it had to be the trainer's decision. What does that have to do with me, the white dragon Reshiram?" Feng was silent for a moment, then nodded and said, "Then hold on a little longer. Hoenn and Lugia are about to arrive, Reshiram. In the end, it's me, the white dragon, who bears the brunt of it all." Reshiram sighed silently, unfurling his horrific white wings again. He dodged Dark Lugia's attack, condensing a purple energy shockwave from his mouth and retaliating with a sharp gaze. Dragon wave. Dark Lugia pursued Reshiram relentlessly, a playful expression in his eyes. He let out a sharp, high-pitched roar and flew towards it at a rapid speed. Before Dark Lugia could get close, he saw the terrifying purple shockwave coming towards him. Dark Lugia was caught off guard and directly hit by Dragon Wave. He let out a painful roar and slammed into the rubble on the ground. Seeing Dark Lugia fall into the rubble, Reshiram couldn't help but breathe a sigh of relief, breathing heavily, a hint of pride in his bright blue eyes. HMPH. See. Even though I, White Dragon, have not yet recovered from carrying my trainer, I remain unbeatable. But before Reshiram could bask in his pride for long, a powerful wave of energy erupted from the ruins. A surge of powerful pink-purple telekinesis instantly knocked Reshiram off his feet, sending him carelessly careening towards the nearby wreckage. Feng, sitting behind Reshiram, felt a powerful telekinetic attack. As Reshiram flew backward, he clutched at the white feathers on its back with both hands, his mouth twitching. It took a tremendous effort to free himself from the risk of injury. At that moment, the dark clouds suddenly cleared, and the violent storm gradually dissipated. It seemed as if some unknown force had forcibly interrupted the power released by Dark Lugia, causing the surrounding environment to return to normal. A dazzling, rainbow-colored light shot up from the foggy region outside the blue star continent, piercing through the numerous obstacles and illuminating Feng's position. On the other side of the rainbow, a phoenix-like creature, shrouded in rainbow light, slowly approached, carrying a powerful sense of oppression. Seeing this, Feng breathed a long sigh of relief, clutching the rainbow feathers in his hand, guiding the direction of the Hoenn's arrival. Dark Lugia paused in shock at the scene before him, looking solemnly at the rainbow-colored figure in the sky, a rare expression of confusion. Dark Lugia sensed a familiarity in the Hoenn's aura, and a deep hatred flickered into his crimson eyes as he lost himself in memories. The Ho-Oh flapped its iridescent wings, gradually approaching Lu Feng. Its bright red eyes caught sight of Lu Feng and Reshiram on the ground, and Dark Lugia not far behind. Suddenly, a sudden realization dawned on them. He quietly realized that the one summoning him this time might be Lu Feng, the colorful black hero whom he had recently recognized. What the Phoenix King couldn't understand was how Lu Feng could be involved with a true dragon god of Unova, and he seemed to have a dreamy aura about him. The Phoenix King, holy crap! Could it be that my rainbow hero has been poached? At this thought, the Phoenix King suddenly fell silent. His bright red eyes casting a meaningful glance at Lu Feng. Lu Feng felt the Phoenix King's meaningful gaze and couldn't help but touch his nose awkwardly, unable to speak for a long time. At that moment, he suddenly felt like he'd been raped, and he felt a little uncomfortable. A moment later, Lu Feng endured the strange look from Ho-Oh, and suddenly raised his head to look directly at the colorful figure in the sky. He took a deep breath and said, "Ho-Oh, please help me subdue Dark Lugia." After hearing Lu Feng's words, Ho-Oh turned his gaze to Dark Lugia, and when he felt the evil aura emanating from him, he nodded slightly and let out a high-pitched cry. If you are listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means it was downloaded and re-uploaded without effort. We warmly invite you to visit our channel, Fanfic World. There you will find the original version of this story and many other novels of various genres. We look forward to seeing you dive into a world of incredible novels. Chapter 263 Three Heroes vs. Haluo. Hearing the Ho-Oh's cry, Dark Lugia snapped back to reality. The crimson in his eyes deepened, and his aura erupted, a raging rage permeating his being. At that moment, Dark Lugia remembered the source of that familiar feeling, why he was so sensitive to Ho-Oh's presence. Wasn't it quite that sensitive? After all, it was Ho-Oh himself who had once been sealed away by the three sacred beasts. Though it wasn't this Ho-Oh that had sealed Dark Lugia, he couldn't forget the power that flowed from that same source. He glared at Ho-Oh with resentment, erupting with a fierce murderous intent, and began to gather immense strength. In an instant, Dark Lugia flapped his jet-black wings, unleashing a terrifying murderous aura. He charged directly towards Ho-Oh, gathering a terrifying pressure to intimidate. Dragon Dive. Ho-Oh sensed the rage and undisguised murderous intent within Dark Lugia. A look of profound bewilderment spread across his face, his body mired in a state of bewilderment. Ho-Oh, damn it! Is this strange-colored Lugia a psychopath? Do I have a grudge against you? Why are you acting like you're on the verge of a fight to the death? Seeing Dark Lugia about to collide with Ho-Oh, and sensing a powerful pressure coming from his side, Ho-Oh suddenly reacted, spewing a mystical, iridescent flame from his mouth, charging directly at the incoming Dark Lugia. Holy fire! In an instant, Dark Lugia slammed into Ho-Oh. The powerful impact, coupled with a heavy dragon-type attack, caused Ho-Oh's eyes to flash with pain, and he cried out in pain, his body involuntarily flung to the side. Simultaneously, Ho-Oh's holy fire skill successfully landed on Dark Lugia, completely enveloping him and unleashing a purifying force, attempting to incinerate the dark matter within Dark Lugia's body. Unfortunately, the holy fire seemed to be lacking in power, failing to purify the dark energy within Dark Lugia. Lu Feng, noticing this, couldn't help but reveal a look of disappointment. He lowered his head slightly and sighed silently. After a moment's reflection, he felt somewhat relieved. It made sense. If Dark Lugia could be purified so easily, then the Ho-Oh that had existed for thousands of years wouldn't have resorted to sealing it away beneath the star-picking tower for so long. Gazing at the fierce battle between Ho-Oh and Dark Lugia in the sky, Lu Feng turned to Reshiram beside him. He quickly retrieved some medicine from his backpack and used Viridian's power to heal him. As time slowly passed, Reshiram's injuries gradually healed. His bright blue eyes gazed skyward, fixed on Dark Lugia. Seeing Ho-Oh and Dark Lugia engaged in a relentless battle, Reshiram let out an excited dragon roar. Reshiram, I feel like I can do it again. Cyrillic letter U. Lu Feng sensed Reshiram's fighting spirit, then looked toward the raging battle in the sky. He addressed Reshiram in a deep voice, Reshiram, please help Ho-Oh and capture the Dark Lugia. Reshiram nodded silently, flapping his white wings and soaring into the sky, swooping down on Dark Lugia. This time, Lu Feng didn't ride Reshiram. Instead, he released his own Articuno, quietly approaching a short distance from the three. He commanded Articuno to fire his ice beam at any moment Dark Lugia showed a weakness. But before Lu Feng and Articuno could act, The silver feather he had placed on his chest suddenly emitted a warm sensation, instantly drawing his attention. Lu Feng quickly withdrew the silver feather and grasped it tightly. Before he could react, the silver feather shimmered with silver light, gradually transforming into a silver-white passage. A moment later, the technique. A massive white figure appeared before him, emitting a clear howl, as if greeting him. Lu Feng, I'm here. Hearing the voice in his heart, Lu Feng smiled faintly, pointed toward the sky, and said to the Lugia that had come from afar, Lugia, thank you for your help. Lugia raised his slender neck and shifted his gaze to the nearby sky. He saw Reshiram, Ho-Oh, and Dark Lugia engaged in a fierce battle. His expression became extremely complicated, especially when he sensed the aura emanating from Dark Lugia, and the undisguised evil, tyranny, and darkness within him. A flash of sadness crossed Lugia's eyes. After all, in the legends of Kanto and Johto, the Lugia clan has always been the epitome of kindness and peace. To human trainers, they are the gods of the higher legends that are closer to humanity. However, at this moment, the appearance of the Dark Lugia that was completely different. One can imagine the shock he felt. Leave it to me. Lugia should handle the Lugia clan's affairs, Lugia replied in a deep voice. Without waiting for Lu Feng to say anything, it flapped its wings and soared into the sky, attacking Dark Lugia. Instantly, countless energies of various colors blasted into the void, causing a violent tremor. The residual battle wave swept all around, stirring up a terrifying storm of air. The sky gradually tore apart, white clouds gradually vanished, and a huge roar echoed through the clouds, shaking the earth. Wow, 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 this is truly awe-inspiring. A battle between 4 high-level legendary Pokémon. Lu Feng, standing behind Articuno, could sense the terrifying aura and powerful energy waves emanating from a distance, and couldn't help but sigh. In ancient times, 3 heroes fought Lu Bu, and now 3 heroes fight Kirakuo. Not much different, from what Lu Feng knew, such battles didn't seem very common. Only the Sinnoh War of Medina, where the Sinnoh Triceratops battled the alpaca, and the legendary battle to liberate Hoopa in Kalos, could rival the number of legendaries involved in the battle before him. In the sky, Dark Lugia let out a hoarse whine, its eyes glaring blankly at the enemies in 3 directions. Suddenly, a state of daze appeared, as if it had entered a state of stagnation. Dark Lugia, damn it. If you dare, let's have a one-on-one duel. What's the point of a group fight? Reshiram and the other 2 exchanged glances, ignoring Dark Lugia's impotent rage. Instead, they attacked him relentlessly, unleashing a continuous barrage of skills and attacks. Reshiram and Lugia's attacks were particularly fierce. After all, in the previous one-on-one duel, White Dragon had been battered for a long time by Dark Lugia due to his injuries. Now, seeing his helper approach, he had no choice but to avenge his recent grudge. Lugia, on the other hand, felt pity for his misfortune and anger at his lack of resistance. For the sake of the Lugia clan's reputation, he had no choice but to strike ruthlessly at the Dark Lugia before him. In an instant. Intertwining flames. Holy flames. Cyclone attack. 3 different skills, each wielding terrifying energy attacks, lashed out at Dark Lugia. Facing attacks from 3 directions, Dark Lugia couldn't defend against any of them. After a moment's deliberation, he decided to attack Ho-Oh. Compared to Reshiram and Lugia, Ho-Oh's aura was more vivid in his memory. Ho-Oh stared at the incoming attacks, a sullen look in his eyes. He flapped his multicolored wings, shrouded in a rainbow of light, and quickly dodged Dark Lugia's attack. Ho-Oh, damn it, you're poisonous. Those 2 beside you are hammering at you, and you don't attack. You come here to attack me, a slacker? How polite. Under the 3 terrifying attacks, Dark Lugia's body plummeted from the air, crashing directly into the ground, cracking the once smooth earth and leaving a vast, daunting crater. When Lu Feng saw the scene in front of him, he immediately ordered Articuno to come to the deep pit and began to investigate the situation of Dark Lugia. Chapter 264 Wave Sealing Technique. Sealing Dark Lugia. Articuno's colorful flag-like tail fluttered in the wind, its icy blue wings scattering ice crystals as it fluttered. A nervous expression flashed across its face as it cautiously carried Lu Feng closer to the dark pit on the ground. Lu Feng peered down into the pit from above, gazing into the deep, gloomy landscape. After learning about the situation through the power of the wave guide, his expression suddenly changed. Judging from the information transmitted by the wave guide, Dark Lugia hadn't lost its combat capability directly, but was instead using recovery skills to heal its injuries within the pit. My goodness, its health defense is quite strong. It took 3 terrifying attacks head-on without losing its combat capability. It's really surprising, Lu Feng sighed helplessly, muttering in a low voice. To prevent Dark Lugia from recovering from his injuries, Lu Feng took a deep breath and shouted loudly to the 3 Pokémon high in the sky, Reshiram, Blue Flame, Lugia, Earthquake, Ho-Oh, Explosive Flame. The 3 soaring Pokémon exchanged glances for a moment, recalling Dark Lugia's display of strength. Together, they launched an attack towards the pit. Reshiram's mouth condensed into a beautiful, intense blue-green flame, and the turbine engines behind him blasted out blazing flames. With a thrilling dragon roar, he unleashed a burst of searing flames from his mouth. Blue Flame. Lugia flapped its massive white wings, and powerful energy waves emanated from its body, causing the tranquil earth to suddenly tremble violently. A powerful seismic shockwave collided and converged towards the pit. Earthquake. Ho-Oh shone with a rainbow of colors, and its massive yellow beak belched forth scorching flames, gradually forming a large letter shape and rapidly descending into the dark pit. Explosive Flame. In an instant, the murky pit converged with 3 powerful energies, colliding violently and creating a violent explosion. The already shattered earth gradually disintegrated, transforming into a cloud of ash before Lu Feng's eyes. The roar of the explosion resounded through the sky, carrying the terrifying aftermath of the battle in all directions, directly impacting the areas surrounding the Big Apple, setting them on the path to its downfall. When everything subsided, Lu Feng leaned over to survey the pit, catching a glimpse of faint plumes of smoke rising. Still feeling a sense of unease, he quickly commanded Articuno to fire a full-force freezing beam in the direction of the pit. Articuno, convinced, unleashed an icy blue beam, striking directly in the direction of the pit. In an instant, the entire ground was frozen, transforming it into a zone of pervasive cold. Lu Feng nodded with satisfaction at the scene before him and urged Articuno to descend to the ground. High in the sky, Reshiram, Ho-Oh, and other Pokémon looked at each other in bewilderment at Lu Feng and Articuno's actions. So steady? Are they questioning these 3 high legendaries? Or do they simply not believe in their strength? The 3 high legendaries sighed helplessly, feeling a sense of exhaustion. A moment later, they descended from the sky, landing directly near the pit. Observing the incapacitated Dark Lugia within, they fell silent. Lu Feng glanced at the 3 Pokémon and couldn't help but ask, "Everyone, what should we do with this Dark Lugia? Do you have a way to restore it to its original state?" Ho and Lugia shook their heads, indicating they had no solution. As for Reshiram, that was a foregone conclusion. The dark energy within this Lugia has assimilated it, completely reversing its original nature. This is a fundamental change, beyond our control, Ho explained in a low voice, his head lowered. Lugia's gaze dimmed at this, his expression becoming profoundly forlorn. While the Lugia clan was considered a large one in terms of numbers in high legend, they were actually not very numerous. Lugia had thought that by helping Dark Lugia recover, they could further expand their own clan, but they hadn't expected this outcome. His expression was filled with confusion. "Is there no other solution?" Lu Feng asked, frowning, somewhat unwillingly. Ho-Oh was silent for a moment, lost in thought. After a long pause, he slowly said, "It's not impossible. Perhaps Arceus can help this Lugia recover." He glanced at Lu Feng with a half-smile as he spoke. Ho had already sensed a certain aura of Arceus from Lu Feng. Initially, he'd assumed Lu Feng had connected to the Chaoke lineage, but after careful observation, he suddenly realized the truth. He knew clearly that Lu Feng had accidentally acquired a stone tablet left behind by Arceus, which had imbued him with Arceus's presence. Hearing Ho mention Arceus, Lu Feng's expression suddenly turned slightly uneasy. He still remembered carrying one of Arceus's tablets. Given Arceus's cherished importance, if he happened to encounter Arceus at this moment, he wouldn't likely end well. In that case, let's seal this Dark Lugia again. Lu Feng pondered for a moment, then spoke softly, a little troubled, looking at the 3 high legendaries around him. Ho and Reshiram agreed. They turned their attention to Lugia, quietly awaiting its decision. After a while, Lugia's eyes flashed with pity, and he let out a deep wail, nodding at them. He knew this was the only way to prevent Dark Lugia from wreaking havoc and destruction once his injuries had healed. Seeing the legendary Pokémon reach an agreement, Lu Feng suddenly remembered something. With a look of excitement and embarrassment on his face, he pleaded with them, "Why don't you let me seal Dark Lugia? Rishiram? Ho-Oh? Lugia? As Lu Feng finished speaking, the three legendary Pokémon all wore "Are you kidding me" look on their faces, looking at him suspiciously, somewhat bewildered. Then, Lu Feng took out Dark Lugia's feather and Arceus's magical tablet, demonstrated his wave sealing technique to Ho-Oh and the others, and laid out his plan in full detail. After hearing Lu Feng's explanation, the Pokémon pondered it for a moment, then agreed to his request. With Lugia's consent, Lu Feng channeled the power of the magical slab, along with the power of 3 high-level legendary Pokémon, into Dark Lugia's feathers. He then used the wave sealing technique to refine it into a sealed artifact. Thanks to Arceus's power, Lu Feng's feathered sealed artifact might not rival the pot of punishment, created with the power of the 3 slabs, but it was still considered a top-tier sealed artifact. Using Dark Lugia's feathers to seal Dark Lugia, this operation is a perfect score. As expected of you, Guardian of the World Tree, Lu Feng nodded in satisfaction, muttering to himself. Seeing that all preparations were complete, Lu Feng, holding the sealed artifact in hand, approached the unconscious Dark Lugia. His expression filled with immense excitement. Shortly after receiving the inheritance of the power of the Wave Guide, Lu Feng had long yearned to test the power of the Wave Guide sealing technique, but lacking a suitable target for practice, he had been unable to achieve his goal. Now, having a high-level legendary as his training target, how could Lu Feng not be excited? He placed a feather in his hand against Dark Lugia, took a deep breath, and, trying to calm his turbulent emotions, whispered, "Wave Guide, be with me." Wave Guide sealing technique. Instantly, as Lu Feng's voice sank, a powerful Wave Guide force erupted from his body, enveloping Dark Lugia's body. Using a special ritual, he sealed Dark Lugia within the feather seal. Seeing everything completed according to script, Lu Feng couldn't help but breathe a sigh of relief. Chapter 265, Grass Green Orb. Elf Doctor. Not long after, Lu Feng emerged from the pit, the feather seal in hand. Seeing the devastation around him and the city burned to the ground, he fell silent. After a moment of deep thought, he looked up at Lugia, standing nearby, and a decision suddenly came to him. Lu Feng walked over to Lugia and handed her the feather that sealed Dark Lugia. Without hesitation, he said, "Lugia, this is the feather that seals Dark Lugia. I'd appreciate it in your safekeeping." Lugia glanced at Lu Feng in surprise, then nodded slowly, taking the feather from his hand and thanking him. Lu Feng offered a quiet smile in response to Lugia's gratitude. He knew this was probably the best outcome. It would prevent the feather from falling into the wrong hands and allowing Dark Lugia to reappear, and it would also strengthen his friendship with the Lugia clan, a perfect win-win situation. After Lugia properly stored the feather seal, he bid farewell to Lu Feng and the others, departing towards Asia Island. After all, as the god of the sea, responsible for maintaining the stability of the ocean currents, Lugia couldn't leave his territory for too long, lest the currents become unstable, disrupting the balance of nature and leading to the serious consequences of frequent climate disasters. Watching Lugia retreat, Lu Feng turned his gaze to Ho-Oh, meeting his half-smile with an awkward expression. "Rainbow Hero, can you explain my confusion?" Ho-Oh's bright red eyes fixed on Lu Feng, questioning him with a soul-searching question. "Why do I sense the aura of other high legends coming from you?" Hearing the ethereal female voice echoing in his mind, Lu Feng's lips moved slightly, wanting to say something to answer the Phoenix King's question, but he didn't know how. He could only stammer and weep. "Phoenix King, it's not that I couldn't resist the temptation, it's simply that they offer too much." Seeing Lu Feng's expression, the Phoenix King wasn't angry, but a hint of resignation appeared on his face. The Phoenix King had seen through Lu Feng, the colorful black hero, even when he passed the trial, and had been mentally prepared for this. After all, it was impossible to expect someone who could even bring a high legend to the trial's guidance battle to remain obedient as the Rainbow Hero. This was merely a well-timed warning, a reminder for Lu Feng to remember his duties as the Rainbow Hero. "I hope you won't forget the responsibility of the Rainbow Hero." After a moment's silence, the Phoenix King's voice resonated in Lu Feng's heart, like a resounding bell, a resounding force. Seeing the Phoenix King wasn't angry, Lu Feng's heart settled, and he quickly agreed with a smile. Then, as if remembering something, Lu Feng looked at the Phoenix King, who was shrouded in a rainbow of light, and said seriously, "Phoenix King, the survivors of Yuanzhou City once asked me to bring you a message. 150 years ago, they've acknowledged their mistakes. I hope you'll return to Yuanzhou City." After this, Lu Feng remained silent, quietly observing the changes in the Phoenix King's expression. This request was made by Songhai, the gym master of Yuanzhou Gym, during their visit to the burnt tower. Lu Feng had been participating in the trial at Shianking Mountain at the time, and he hadn't remembered it, which had delayed him for so long. After hearing Lu Feng's words, the Phoenix King fell silent for a long time. His eyes filled with reminiscence and anger, and his breath became erratic. A long moment passed. Her ethereal, female voice echoed again in Lu Feng's mind, "I'll have the 3 sacred beasts observe. If it's as you say, it's not impossible, all right. Rainbow Hero, if you have nothing else to do, I'm going back to bed." Lu Feng pondered silently for a moment, then shook his head at Toho, indicating that he had nothing else to do. Although he also wanted to take advantage of his superior, seeing that Ho-Oh was currently in a state of turmoil, he decided not to risk it. As a high-level legend, Ho-Oh naturally sensed Lu Feng's thoughts. Seeing his understanding, he nodded with satisfaction, then turned and soared high into the sky, enveloped in a rainbow of light, returning to his nearby nest for a rest. Standing in the dilapidated ruins, Lu Feng watched Ho-Oh depart in a shimmering haze. He silently retrieved his communicator, informed Wu Feng and the others of the end of the matter, and told them to handle the prize collection themselves. He then retrieved his Pokeball, retrieved Articuno, and boarded Reshiram to return to Urayama City. June 16th, Sunday. Sunlight softly streamed down the small courtyard of the Pingshan Gym. The heat lifted, and a gentle breeze drifted from the nearby forest, bringing a slight coolness to the small gym. 20 days had passed since the conclusion of the Nations League and the resealing of Dark Lugia. According to the League's agreement, the Great Xia Kingdom, victorious in this tournament, would naturally receive the majority of the Blue Star Alliance's interests, giving it a dominant position in the soon-to-be-formed Grand League. Those nations that suffered losses from Dark Lugia, while aware that their losses were due to Lu Feng's deliberate manipulation, were forced to swallow their anger after reflecting on his formidable display of strength. They instead directed their wrath against the perpetrators of the incident, the Jebel leaders of the Bald Eagle Federation, demanding they pay a heavy price for their actions. To avoid any unforeseen consequences, after careful consideration, Lu Feng decided to leave a hidden card for the Great Xia Kingdom. He then brought Reshiram to the Nanlu Tunnel, unleashed the seal deep within, and released the long-imprisoned Regirock. At its peak, Regirock's power was roughly at the level of a quasi-legendary, but with the passage of time, its current strength had fallen to the level of a champion. Upon sensing its strength, Lu Feng couldn't help but breathe a sigh of relief, feeling deeply grateful that he hadn't unleashed the seal without permission. After some friendly negotiations and Lu Feng's constant persuasion, Regirock, seeing the complete demise of the humans who had sealed him and the disappearance of their direct descendants, finally gave up his plans for revenge and remained in the Great Xia Kingdom as its guardian deity. Furthermore, for his significant role in this tournament and incident, the Great Xia Alliance presented Lu Feng with 4 ancient artifacts of his choosing as a special reward. As for the other ordinary rewards, that's a given. Lu Feng gazed at the 4 items laid out before him, nodded with satisfaction, and a look of excitement spread across his face. The 4 items consisted of a green orb and 3 shattered orb fragments of varying colors. Comparing his memories, Lu Feng clearly understood that these items were the grass-green orb associated with the high legendaries and the fragments of the exclusive items belonging to the 3 Senna dragons. The grass-green orb was an artifact created by the Pokémon Association in the special episode, modeled after the vermilion and blue orbs. Its primary function was to communicate with the Sky Dragons and influence Rayquaza's actions. Lu Feng speculated that this grass-green orb was most likely made from the meteorite that allowed Rayquaza to mega-evolve, mimicking the other 2 orbs. This is a setting for this article only. The original story doesn't specifically state whether this is the case. After a moment's reflection, Lu Feng handed the diamond orb fragment to Articuno, allowing it to sense the power of time hidden within it. He then handed the white jade orb to Garcombe, hoping it could comprehend the mysteries of space and enhance its swordsmanship. Finally, Lu Feng gave Jengar the fragment of the platinum orb to help it increase its ghost-type energy. Furthermore, after months of polishing, the Mega Evolution paper was published. This caused a huge sensation in the Pokémon world, sparking a frenzy among countless trainers, who spontaneously headed to the Kalos region in search of Mega Evolution stones. Only then did the other nations of the Blue Star continent finally learn of the sheer power of the Mega Evolution used by the Great Xia Kingdom in the League. and they quickly dispatched personnel to search for the Mega Evolution Stones. With the help of the Mega Evolution paper, Lu Feng finally achieved his dream of becoming a Pokémon doctor, unlocking his carry slots to 12 and receiving numerous privileges from the Pokémon League. Meanwhile, the system also rewarded Lu Feng with a set of top-quality evolution stones. While they weren't very useful to him at the moment, they were better than nothing. Chapter 266, Invitation to the Wind Festival. Seeing that most things had been arranged, Lu Feng shifted his gaze to a blue figure not far away. It was a small, blue Pokémon, resembling a puppy. It had a cerulean tail, a yellow collar, and a white bump on the back of its front paw. This Pokémon was naturally the fighting-type Rylu, recently hatched from a Pokémon egg. Name, Rylu. Gender, male. Sign, attribute, fighting, ability, unyielding heart. Each time it is flinched, it triggers the unyielding heart ability, increasing the Pokémon speed. Classification, Wave Pokémon. Qualification, Legendary, blessed by the first tree of the world and the power of Ho-Oh. Strength, Normal. Skills, Lightning Flash, Feint, Hold On, Metal Claws, Double Payback, See-Through, Inherited, Vacuum Wave, Inherited, Bullet Punch, Inherited. Through this period of training, Rylu has graduated from its larval stage and reached normal level. Perhaps due to the influence of the first world tree and the power of the Holy Ash, the newly born Rylu is particularly sensitive to wave guidance and life force. Its overall appearance was also somewhat different from that of a typical Rylu, seemingly atavistic. Seeing Rylu's transformation, Lu Feng couldn't help but feel overjoyed, a sudden sense of enlightenment dawning. He knew full well that perhaps a special path wasn't necessary for Rylu. As long as these two powers were cultivated to their full potential, reaching legendary status would be a sure thing. Time passed, and another dozen days passed, with July just around the corner. Through this period of training, Lu Feng's Pokémon had made significant progress, significantly boosting his power. Among them, Swampert and Banjira had reached the peak of the elite level, while Jengar had just reached a late elite level. However, with the help of the Platinum Orb Fragment, its control over Ghost-type energy had greatly improved. Charizard has reached mid-Perfect King status. Articuno, while only at early Perfect King level, is gradually gaining insights into the power of time with the help of the Diamond Orb Fragments. Using the Soul Heart item Lu Feng obtained last time, Eevee has reached the late Quasi-Perfect King level, becoming multitasking and capable of creating a fifth stand. With the help of abundant resources, Togekiss has reached the Quasi-Perfect King level, while Red Gyarados has mastered the Perfect King aura, reaching the early Perfect King level. Garchomp, after obtaining Fuzo's swordsmanship videos and harnessing the special power of the White Jade Orb Fragments, has gradually developed his own unique swordplay trump card, reaching late Perfect King status. As for Gardevoir, Lu Feng was most surprised. With the help of the Magical Slate, Gardevoir has reached the Quasi-Champion level, becoming Lu Feng's first common Pokémon to reach Quasi-Champion status. This made Lu Feng sigh in admiration. The Alpaca Slate is indeed powerful. While a bit risky, it's truly amazing. July 3rd, Wednesday. As usual, Lu Feng arrived at the Pingshan Gym, meticulously mentoring the gym's newly recruited apprentices while also fielding challenges from all over. Perhaps fueled by their victory in the Nations League, countless young men and women of appropriate age traveled thousands of miles to Pingshan City specifically to challenge Lu Feng's Pingshan Gym. This suddenly transformed the once obscure Pingshan Gym into a highly sought-after institution in Daksha, gradually becoming officially recognized as the top of the 8 strongest gyms. Lu Feng had just finished his instruction and was about to take a break when Rodham flew over at incredible speed, calling out a resounding warning. Beep, Lu Feng, new call alert. Rodham. Hearing Rodham's words, Lu Feng quickly stopped and whispered, "Thank you, Rodham." Then, Lu Feng swiped his finger across the screen, and a familiar figure appeared on the screen above Rodham's abdomen. He stared at the figure on the screen before him with a surprised expression, and asked in confusion, "Zaya Ozzy, long time no see. What's the matter with you contacting me today?" Zaya Ozzy stared at Lu Feng through the screen, first showing off his 5 newly earned badges, and then excitedly asked, "Lu Feng, I've already earned 5 badges from the Johto region. I wonder how many you have now." Hearing Zaya Ozzy's words, Lu Feng pursed his lips, chuckled softly, and shook his head. "Zaya Ozzy, I'm not planning on participating in the Silver Tournament, so I haven't challenged any gyms in the Johto region yet." Zaya Ozzy was stunned for a moment, seemingly unprepared for this outcome, and a hint of disappointment settled in. Is that so? I thought I could fight you in this silver tournament. Lu Feng shrugged and waved Xiaozi away, giving him a helpless expression. At this moment, suddenly, a female voice echoed from behind Ash, warning him angrily, "Ash, don't forget your business." The voice behind Ash instantly caught Lu Feng's attention, and he turned to look. Seeing the familiar figures, Lu Feng smiled and greeted them. "Misty and Brock, long time no see." Misty and Brock nodded and exchanged a few words. Then, with Misty and Brock's introductions, Lu Feng finally understood the situation, and suddenly everything clicked. It turned out that while traveling in the Johto region, Ash and his companions had stumbled upon Windfall City. Windfall City staff recognized them as the trainers involved in the recent Orange Islands incident. Therefore, they hoped to use Ash and his companions to invite Lu Feng to the Wind Festival. The Wind Festival is Windfall City's grand annual celebration. According to long-standing legend, Lugia descends on the final day of the Wind Festival, bringing with it the Wind of Grace. Perhaps due to the Burning Tower incident 150 years ago, Lugia had become disillusioned with humanity, and it had been a long time since he appeared at the Wind City celebrations. Hoping to bring Lugia back to Wind City and bring the long-lost Wind of Grace, the Wind City staff turned their attention to Satoshi and his friends, hoping they could help Lugia reappear. Furthermore, to secure Lu Feng, Satoshi, and the others' agreement, the Wind City staff promised that after the celebration, regardless of whether Lugia appeared or not, Wind City would give them several tickets to travel to Alto Mare and cover all travel expenses. Lu Feng pondered silently for a moment, weighing the pros and cons. Satoshi and the others waited quietly for his response, their eyes filled with anticipation. After a long moment, Lu Feng, seemingly recalling something, simply accepted Satoshi's invitation. A moment later, Lu Feng ended his call with Satoshi and the others, his eyes flickering slightly as he fell into deep thought. If he remembered correctly, there seemed to be a mythical Pokémon from Malala hidden within Wind City, Jirora. This was the reason Lu Feng had agreed to attend the Wind Festival. Moreover, this trip would also allow him to visit Alto Mare, where he might even encounter the Water City siblings. The thought of this excited him. You know, Lu Feng hadn't gotten any good results in ages, and the strength of several of his team's Pokémon had begun to stagnate. If he didn't find more, there was no telling when he'd finally reach champion status. Chapter 267 Arrival at Wind City. Pokémon Capture Contest. The next morning, the sky brightened with light, and a gentle breeze blew. The fragrance of the surrounding wildflowers, accompanied by the rustling of leaves, drifted into the living room of the Hirayama gym as time ticked by. The red alarm clock in the room suddenly chimed, shattering the morning's tranquility and waking Lu Feng from his slumber. Lu Feng yawned, climbed from his soft bed, and warily walked to the table, turning off the blaring alarm. Then he went to the bathroom and began a quick wash. Not long after, Lu Feng finished breakfast and walked to the gym's training grounds. He assigned tasks to his apprentices, explained the situation, and then left the Hirayama gym. He took out his Garchomp, wrapped his arms around its body, and directed it to fly towards the Johto region. Since he was attending the festival, he hadn't brought many Pokémon with him. Aside from the Pokémon he brought with him, Tajikus, Regiaritus, Riolu, Rotom, Eevee, and Garchomp, the rest of his regular Pokémon were placed in gyms to help defend the Hirayama gym. After 3 days of flying, with the help of Garchomp, Lu Feng once again arrived in Goldman Slots in the Johto region. Having traveled for 3 consecutive days, Lu Feng was already exhausted by the time he arrived. He first stopped at the Goldman Slots Pokémon Center, where he rested for a night to recover his energy and restore Garchomp's stamina. As the sun rose the next day, Lu Feng slowly exited the Pokémon Center, retrieved a map of the Johto region, and carefully located Windward City. Note: official information on Windy City doesn't directly specify the region of the city. However, since most of the Pokémon depicted there are from the Johto region, and it's also related to Lugia, the author has chosen it as a Johto region city. For details, see the Pokémon the movie, Our Story. After careful research, Lu Feng finally found Windy City's exact location. He also saw a description of Windy City's origins on a map of the Johto region. As a coastal city, Windy City is located roughly between Azure City and the Whirlpool Islands, on a small island. Initially, the island where Windy City was located was extremely barren, but the mutual support between humans and Pokémon formed a special bond that Lugia greatly appreciated. To reward the harmonious relationship between humans and Pokémon, Lugia appeared before the humans and made a pact with them to send the Wind of Grace every year. With the help of the Wind of Grace, humans gradually built Windy City on the island, gradually developing it into its present state. After receiving the exact information, Feng pulled out his Pokeball and released Garchomp. He explained the situation to it, letting it know their destination. Garchomp nodded at Feng and let out a low growl, indicating that he understood the information. Feng's eyes blazed brightly, and he smiled at Garchomp, saying, "Garchomp, target Windfall City. Let's go." Garchomp folded its body, spread its wings, and like a small jet, approached Windfall City at the speed of sound. 2.5 hours later, as the sun reached its peak, Feng and Garchomp finally arrived at Windfall City, gradually landing in a cool, shaded area of trees to avoid the scorching sun. Feeling the fragrant sea breeze that drifted by from time to time, Feng felt a sense of ease and relaxation. He gazed at the entire city and couldn't help but exclaim, "It truly is a city built on the wind." The name truly lives up to its name. From his current position, he could see the Wind Festival venue on the city's edge, the stadium within, and the surrounding sacred flame. Perhaps because the Wind Festival was approaching, Fenglai City was packed with people, bustling with activity. Seeing this scene, Feng's expression became thoughtful, and he murmured with sudden realization, "So that's how it is." At that moment, Feng finally understood the Fenglai City officials' intentions and why they had spent so much to invite them to the celebration. It was because the recent appearance of Lugia from Asia Island had given Fenglai City officials new hope, hoping to attract a wave of tourists through publicity and boost the local economy. After figuring out many things, Feng released Rodham and tasked him with contacting Satoshi and the others to find their whereabouts. "What a beautiful city!" Lotto 3, Rodham exclaimed, feeling the cool breeze as it danced through the air, somewhat enchanted, and snapped photos. Feng glanced at Rodham with a hint of resignation before quickly reminding him, "Okay, Rodham. Help me contact Satoshi and the others first and find their current location. We can enjoy the scenery later." "Got it, Lotto," Rodham nodded, pausing his admiration to help Feng contact Satoshi and the others. A few minutes later, Feng received news of Satoshi and the others and began to emerge from the cool forest, heading towards Wind City's central street. After contacting Satoshi and the others, he learned that Satoshi and the others were currently participating in the traditional Wind Festival event in the city, the Pokémon capturing contest. Following the city's signposts, Feng headed for Central Avenue, arriving quickly at the bustling hubbub. "There are quite a lot of people," Feng said, somewhat helplessly, trying to avoid the crowds. Following the surging crowd, he cautiously made his way to the stage erected by the organizers, just in time to see the Pokémon capture contest begin. Ozzy rushed out of the stage, clutching several specially crafted Pokéballs. He excitedly ran towards Windwood City, chasing the numerous Pokémon released by the organizers. Before Feng could even begin to speak, he vanished. Gazing at the scene, Feng's lips twitched slightly, and he sighed silently. As expected of a silly fellow. Still as energetic as ever, then. Feng looked around for a moment, asking Rodham to help him find Misty and Brock, trying to spot them amidst the throng. After a careful search, Rodham, using his flight ability, soon spotted Misty and Brock in the crowd and called out, "Feng, I found them." Rodham, Feng suddenly looked up and, following Rodham's guidance, headed towards Brock and Misty. Chapter 268 Meeting Sirona again. As Feng struggled to reach Xiaoxia and Misty, Xiaogang and Xiaoxia were staring intently at the large screen in front of them, listening attentively to the host's loud announcement. From the host's voice, Feng could clearly see that in the current Pokémon capture contest standings, thanks to their close cooperation, Xiaozi and Pikachu had steadily gained points and advanced to second place. Ahead of them, the one who took first place in the competition was, of course, the boastful Uncle Kageki, who, with the help of Pokémon researcher Torito, had a significant lead over the Zhi and Pikachu duo. Watching the scene before him, Feng couldn't help but shake his head, silently sighing. Compared to Destiny Child, the cheater is truly more powerful. He easily blocked Ash's buff from the movie, then, he slowly walked behind Brock and Misty and shouted, "Brock, Misty." The two, intent on their actions, suddenly turned around to see Feng, his robes fluttering. Joy crossed their faces, and they quickly walked over to him, silently breathing a sigh of relief. "Feng, you're finally here. We thought you wouldn't make it to Fengji," Lu Feng scratched the back of his head and smiled faintly at the two. At that moment, a cry of surprise rose from the crowd, drawing everyone's attention. Abangla, released by the tournament organizers, had become somewhat frantic due to its neck being entangled in an electric wire, and stumbled towards the crowd. Seeing it about to burst into the crowd, causing harm to the surrounding tourists, Lu Feng's brows gradually furrowed. Just as he was about to intervene to stop the Banjira, Pikachu, engulfed in lightning, unleashed a powerful electric current, stopping the Banjira. Because of the commotion caused by the Banjira, the competition gradually came to a close, and soon ended. Although Xiaozi had captured Banjira and earned a large number of points in this Pokemon capture contest, he was still not as good as Kagaki's long-range attack, and could only take second place in the contest. Then, Fenglai City's mayor, Oriba, personally presented Xiaozi with a runner-up trophy and expressed his high praise for his actions in stopping Banjira. Xiaogang and Xiaoxia exchanged a glance, then quickly tugged at Lu Feng's arms and rushed over to where Xiaozi and Oriba were, whispering to him, "Lu Feng. That's Mayor Oriba who asked us to invite you here. Let's hurry over." Lu Feng quickly followed the two of them, a helpless look flashing in his eyes. He couldn't help but secretly complain in his heart, "Just talk, why are you pulling and tugging? Could it be that this stupid thing is contagious?" The few people were seen getting closer and closer to Xiaozi and Oriba. Before they could get completely close, a figure in black and blonde hair suddenly appeared beside Mayor Oriba, making Lu Feng look quite surprised. When they came near Xiaozi, Xiaoxia and Xiaogang immediately pointed at Lu Feng and said to Oriba in front of them, "Mayor Oriba, this is the Lu Feng you want to invite." Oriba heard the words, and joy flashed in his deep eyes. He walked quickly to Lu Feng, stretched out his hands and shook his right hand tightly, and said excitedly, "Mr. Lu Feng, thank you very much for coming to participate in the Wind Festival. On behalf of Fenglai City, I welcome you." After that, he took Lu Feng, Xiaogang and Xiaoxia, and walked to the black-clothed and blonde woman. Just when he was about to introduce them, "This is Mayor Oriba, Miss Sharona and I have known each other for a long time. There is no need to introduce me too much." But before Oriba could speak, Lu Feng raised a smile at the corner of his mouth, interrupted him a little embarrassedly, and said directly to the blonde beauty opposite, "Long time no see. Miss Sharona." Sharona showed a faint smile on her beautiful face, pursed her lips, and replied softly, "See you again, Lu Feng." Seeing the familiar exchange between the two, the rest of Ash and his friends looked surprised. Brock was even more aroused, unable to resist asking, "Lu Feng, who is this beautiful lady?" Lu Feng turned and explained to Ash and the others, "I met Miss Sharona a few months ago while traveling in Johto. She's a scholar of mythology and legends, and she's also the 4 Heavenly Kings champion of the Sinnoh region." 4 Heavenly Kings champion. Ash and the others glanced at Sharona in disbelief. Even Brock, always a fangirl, was stunned by Lu Feng's words. They hadn't imagined that this young lady, barely older than themselves, could be the region's strongest champion. It felt like a dream to Ash and the others. Sharona noticed their nervousness, a faint smile playing across her face. She greeted them warmly, urging them to relax. Then, Mayor Oriba saw this and had a city staff member hand the promised travel tickets to the 4 of them. Without interrupting the conversation, he turned and left, continuing to coordinate matters related to the Wind Festival. Led by the mayor's daughter, Larugo, the group arrived at a famous dessert shop in Wind City, enjoying local delicacies and chatting. Looking across at Sharona, who was enjoying vanilla ice cream, Lu Feng couldn't help but ask a question, somewhat bewilderedly, "Miss Sharona, aren't you returning to the Sinnoh region?" "Why?" Sharona, knowing what he was about to ask, slowly raised her head, tucked her falling golden hair into her hand, and replied with a charming smile, "There's a Pokemon seminar happening in Waterborne City soon. You know my research focuses on Pokemon mythology and legends. I happened to hear that Wind City was holding the Wind Festival, and it was related to the legendary Pokemon Lugia, so I came to Wind City hoping to obtain relevant information." After hearing Sharona's explanation, Lu Feng suddenly understood and nodded slowly, a skeptical expression on his face. From what he knew of Sharona, her research trip was likely a sideline, and she probably wanted to slack off. "Oh my goodness, the slacking champion is back." As if sensing the strangeness in Lu Feng's eyes, Sharona couldn't help but wrinkle her nose, looking directly at him with a meaningful glance. Meanwhile, our classmate Xiaozi couldn't hold back any longer and finally decided to attack Sharona. He challenged her to a Pokémon battle, saying solemnly, "Miss Sharona, please join me in a Pokémon battle." Instantly, everyone's eyes focused on Ozzy, their expressions of helplessness etched on their faces, as they shook their heads slightly. Sharona didn't refuse Ozzy's request, but rather agreed immediately. Using a nearby production area, they challenged him to a 3v3 Pokémon battle. The final result was self-evident. After all, Ozzy didn't yet possess Greninja, and Sharona wasn't Carlos's acting-obsessed champion, Karuna. Chapter 269 The Missing Holy Flame. Zorora. The next day, just as the sun rose, the temperature gradually climbed, bringing a hint of dryness. As time passed, golden sunlight streamed through the hotel windows, streaming into the numerous guest rooms, falling on the sleepy travelers and jerking them awake from the sweltering heat. What's going on? Why isn't the air conditioner in this room working? Feng rubbed his sleepy eyes, yawning and muttering in dissatisfaction. He casually picked up the remote control lying nearby and pressed the button firmly, his brow furrowing. At this moment, a noisy sound came from the street outside, as if something major had happened. This caught Feng's attention, and he hurried to the windowsill to look down. He saw that for some unknown reason, the huge wind turbine surrounding Fenglai City had stopped operating, and the fragrant sea breeze was no longer felt. Seeing the scene in front of him, Feng quickly washed up, then left his room, walked to the doors of other people's rooms, and knocked hard on their doors. Not long after, everyone left the hotel where they were temporarily staying and came to the street not far away, where they learned the reason for the incident from the surrounding residents. Because the sacred flame on the sacred flame stand was lost, the wind direction around changed, gradually passing over the location of Fenglai City, causing Fenglai City, which relied on wind power generation, to stop the wind turbines for a short period of time, and fell into a temporary power outage. Knowing the whole story, Feng couldn't help but curl his lips, thinking secretly in his heart, the sacred flame of Fenglai City was lost, and Lugia cut off the power supply. The code has been matched. Isn't this the plot of the theater version? A moment later, Mayor Orba of Wind City quickly approached the crowd, his face filled with worry as he pleaded, "Champion Sharona, Wind City's sacred flame is missing. We urge you to help us. If we can't find the sacred flame before dawn tomorrow, Wind City's power will be exhausted. Not only will we not be able to continue the Wind Festival, but chaos will likely ensue throughout the city. Mayor Orba, rest assured, I will do my utmost to help Wind City recover the sacred flame." Upon hearing Mayor Orba's request and reflecting on her responsibilities as champion, Sharona agreed without hesitation. Ozzy and the others nearby also volunteered to comfort the weary Mayor Orba and join in the search for the sacred flame. Feng noticed everyone's gazes turning towards him, and before he could say anything, the cold system notification chime echoed in his ears, causing him to lose focus for a moment. Ding! Congratulations to the host for receiving the epic quest, Windlay City's celebration. Quest deadline, before the end of the Wind Festival. Quest description: due to unknown circumstances, the sacred flame has been lost from the Windlay City Sacred Flame platform, putting the entire Wind Festival in jeopardy. Please find the sacred flame within the allotted time and ensure the smooth progress of the Windlay City celebration. Quest reward, plus 4% world convergence, a large sum of Alliance coins. Failure penalty, none. After a moment's silence, Feng looked up and said to Mayor Orba, "Mayor Orba, let me help this time too." Although this quest wasn't legendary, and the rewards weren't particularly impressive, gaining 4% world convergence was a small consolation. Upon hearing this, Mayor Orba's frown gradually relaxed. He looked at the crowd with some excitement and said, "Thank you very much for your help. Windlay City will never forget your assistance." Then, after a brief moment of deliberation, the crowd asked Orba to lead them to the Sacred Flame platform to see if they could find any clues. Although Feng knew what had happened to the missing flame, he couldn't bring himself to explain it directly. He simply couldn't follow the others, taking a dedicated elevator as it ascended, a tedious journey to the flame's platform. Using Pikachu's sense of smell, the group detected the scent of the person who stole the flame. With Pikachu's guidance, they sought out Torito, a Pokémon professor specializing in the study of traits and moves. After another intense search, with Torito's help, Ozzy and the others discovered invisible footprints on the flame's platform. Following these footprints, they began searching for the mysterious individual who had taken the flame. Seeing that they had already discovered a clue, Lu Feng excused himself from the investigation team, unleashing his Garchomp, commanding it to fly towards the nearby mountain where the destroyed houses lay. However, Lu Feng didn't notice that, not long after he left, the blonde, black-clad Serona emerged from a nearby spot. She gazed thoughtfully in his direction, her beautiful eyes etched with a deep brilliance. 10 minutes later, with the help of Garchomp, Lu Feng reached the top of the mountain and gradually approached the ruined house that had been destroyed by a wildfire decades earlier. Before Lu Feng could get close, 2 Pokémon poachers appeared, also heading towards the wrecked house. As they neared the heavily damaged structure, they saw the mayor's daughter, Larugo, appear, attempting to distract the 2 Pokémon poachers from the ruined house. However, the noises made by Larugo's Bearcat and Ditto startled the Pokémon poachers, causing them to stop and unleash their Pokéballs, releasing Nola and Houndoom, which attacked the 2 Pokémon. Darkrai gathered blazing flames from its mouth and launched an attack at Larugo, unleashing a burst of blazing flames that poured forth with terrifying heat. Jet of Fire, its sharp silver claws condensed a chilling icy energy, sending a blast of icy air toward Larugo nearby, sending a chilling chill through the air. Frozen Wind, just as Larugo was about to be struck by these 2 terrifying attacks, succumbing to the Pokémon's onslaught, a dark figure flashed by, blocking Larugo, Ursa, and Ditto before the attacks could reach them, shielding them from the impact. The dim light made it impossible to discern its precise form, but subtle arcs of blue electricity could be seen emanating from the sudden appearance. With a powerful aura, it forcibly shattered the 2 energy attacks. When everything returned to calm, a Pokémon resembling an upright cat, with large ears atop its head and long, yellow ponytail-like hair extending from its shoulders, its body covered in blue or black patterns resembling lightning, appeared before everyone. This was Zorora, the electric cat, a mythical Pokémon from the Ulala region. Seeing Zorora's arrival, Lu Feng quickly deployed Garchomp and launched a fierce attack on the nearby poacher's Pokémon. Moments later, Houndoom and Uzumaki fell, their last remaining fighting power extinguished by Garchomp's powerful Dragon Wave. Simultaneously, Lu Feng had Radam use a mild electromagnetic wave to disable the 2 Pokémon poachers' ability to escape, temporarily subduing them while awaiting the arrival of Ash and his companions. Seeing Lu Feng approaching, Larugo quickly approached Zorora, extending his arms to shield it behind him, as if fearing Lu Feng's capture. Seeing this scene, Lu Feng couldn't help but chuckle, and shook his head at Larugo, who looked nervous not far away, indicating that he had no other ill intentions. If you are listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means it was downloaded and re-uploaded without effort. We warmly invite you to visit our channel, Fanfic World. There you will find the original version of this story and many other novels of various genres. We look forward to seeing you dive into a world of incredible novels. Chapter 270. The traitor is actually the mayor's daughter? Seeing that Lu Feng seemed to have no intention of capturing him, Larugo couldn't help but breathe a sigh of relief, his tense body gradually relaxing. Lu Feng slowly approached Larugo, catching a glimpse of the holy flame, casually placed on the ground, emitting a shimmering blue light. A slight smile crossed his lips. Meanwhile, taking advantage of his proximity to Zorora, Lu Feng cast a detect skill on it, observing its situation. Name, Zorora. Gender, male. Sign, attribute, electric. Ability, charge. When attacked by electricity, it can recover by absorbing the electricity. Classification, Thunder Pokémon. Qualification, Quasi-Champion. Strength, Quasi-King. Skills, Lightning Flash, High 5 Attack, Lightning, Power-Up Punch, Plasma Lightning Punch, Thunder Punch, Crazy Volts, Volt Replacement, Close Combat, High Speed Movement, Discharge, Electric Grid, 100,000 volts. After receiving the detailed information, Lu Feng sighed softly. He discovered that the Zorora before him, not only in terms of strength but also in terms of aptitude, seemed to have greatly exceeded his expectations. It wasn't that it exceeded Lu Feng's expectations, but rather that it fell short. However, it made sense. A mythical Pokémon that had been here for over 50 years wasn't a Pokémon like Celebi, who wasn't particularly adept at combat. If its aptitude and strength were considered top tier, it wouldn't have been severely injured by a simple boulder while saving Laruga, to the point where it hasn't recovered yet. Lu Feng sighed silently. He knew full well that this mythical Pokémon, whose strength wasn't even close to that of a king, wouldn't be worth much. After all, most of Lu Feng's Pokémon were significantly stronger than it. Even if he could obtain resources from it, it wouldn't be of much use to his own Pokémon. He pondered for a moment. Feng walked over to Zeraora and, while it was stunned, extended his right hand and placed it on top of him, using Viridian's power to heal the remaining injuries. Seeing Feng's actions, Larugo thought he was going to attack Zeraora and was about to stop him, but then he saw Zeraora, previously stern and aloof, suddenly drop its guard and reveal a look of enjoyment. This left Larugo somewhat bewildered, and he froze in place, waiting quietly for a moment. 10 minutes later, thanks to Viridian's power, the injured Zeraora gradually recovered. Seeing this, Feng quickly withdrew his right hand, a hint of fatigue visible on his face. Larugo noticed that Zeraora's injuries had healed and hurried over to its side. He looked it over and said with some surprise, "Zeraora, you're back." Zeraora's expression became incredibly complex upon hearing this, a hint of softness in her eyes. She called out with a hint of pride, "Zeraora." Through the power of Evergreen, Feng naturally understood its meaning, knowing that Zeraora was thanking him for his help. A smile crossed his face, and he waved it off, telling it to be polite. Seeing the scene before her, Larugo sheepishly approached Feng, lowering her head shyly. She thanked him sincerely. Mr. Feng, thank you so much for your help. I thank you on behalf of Zeraora. Feng looked up the mountain, sensing several auras heading their way. His expression grew complex, and he sighed deeply. Miss Larugo, it's just a casual help, it's nothing to me. In contrast, I think you should think carefully about how to explain this to Mayor Oriba. Larugo hung her head, her beautiful eyes gradually losing their luster, and she fell silent. It was unknown how much time passed. The investigation team, consisting of Zaya Ozzy and several others, arrived before Feng and Larugo. Seeing the sacred flame placed on the ground and Zeraora standing on a large rock not far away, they were momentarily stunned. Who is this Pokémon? Sharona's beautiful eyes fixed on Zeraora, feeling as if she had seen the Pokémon before her somewhere, she couldn't help but blurt out the question. Rodham, hearing Sharona's question, quickly flew over, presenting detailed information and whispering, "Zeraora, a thunderbolt Pokémon? First found in Alola." Sharona's words gradually dawned on her, and she regarded Zeraora with curiosity. Is this Zeraora? But didn't the city residents say it perished in the wildfire? Ash and the others, perplexed by Rodham's suggestion, asked hesitantly. Torito raised his ultraviolet light and shone it on Larugo's shoes. Seeing the marks that appeared, he said in a low voice, "And yet it appears right before our eyes." Then, Torito reached a nearby rock, picked up the missing sacred flame, and sighed to the group. Suddenly, a moment had passed. Everyone who had come to investigate fell silent, the atmosphere becoming extremely oppressive. Larugo, sensing the unusual atmosphere, lowered her head to her knees, saying apologetically, "I'm sorry, Dad. I did all this. Zeraora has nothing to do with it." Everyone's gaze fixed on Larugo, speechless for a long moment. They couldn't believe the mayor's daughter was the one responsible for this incident. It was a bit unbelievable. The traitor was the mayor's daughter, Larugo. Mayor Oriba looked at Larugo sternly, saying, "Alice, do you realize the impact of your actions? Have you ever considered it?" Larugo trembled slightly, whispering, "I'm sorry." At the same time, she recounted how she had been rescued by Zeraora several months earlier and how she had injured it. To prevent trainers from traveling from afar, perhaps inspired by Kagaki's unintentional boasting, from arriving in the mountains and discovering Zeraora hiding nearby, thus putting Zeraora under the spotlight, Larugo stole the sacred flame, hoping to disrupt the Wind Festival and force all trainers to leave Wind City, thereby ensuring Zeraora's safety. Everyone was speechless after hearing Larugo's confession, their eyes filled with shock. Mayor Oriba was silent for a moment, then reached out his right hand to wipe the tears from Larugo's face. He spoke with deep emotion, "Larugo, I'm so glad you're helping the injured Zeraora. It seems it's time for you to know the truth about the wildfire 50 years ago." Everyone standing nearby suddenly looked up, their brows furrowed, unsure of what he meant. Chapter 271 Feng, there shouldn't be any mythical beasts or legends that can't fly, right? Mayor Oriba paused briefly, his deep eyes reflecting a memory. Seeing the unusual expression on his face, the crowd didn't rush him, but waited quietly. Without keeping them waiting for long, Mayor Oriba pondered for a moment before speaking with a complex expression. "Actually, the original owner of this land wasn't humans, but Zeraora before you. As the master of this land, Zeraora was beloved by Pokémon and lived in peace with them. It wasn't until we humans arrived and recklessly cut down and cultivated this land to improve our living standards that the wildfires of 50 years ago occurred. How could that be? Larugo muttered in disbelief, his eyelashes fluttering slightly. The others also lapsed into trance, seemingly overwhelmed by the news. Mayor Orba glanced at the crowd, noting the expressions on their faces, but said nothing. Instead, he shook his head and continued to recount the truth. The flames raged, transforming the forest into a sea of blaze, yet humans cared nothing for the wild Pokémon. Everyone was in a state of panic, helpless in the face of the blaze that spread throughout the forest. Only Zorora, seeing the threat posed to the wild Pokémon by the wildfire, didn't abandon them. Instead, it risked its life to save those trapped in the flames. From that day on, Zorora harbored a deep hatred for humans and gradually lost trust in them. It simply wanted to live in the forest with other Pokémon. Upon hearing this, Larugo finally understood Zorora's resentment of humans and blurted out, "No wonder Zorora resists humans so much." These words struck like a heavy blow, hammering home to everyone, leaving them feeling an indescribable pain. Mayor Orba was silent for a moment, seemingly touched by the thought, but he didn't pause his story. Instead, he gradually quickened his pace. But unfortunately, when Zorora's news was exposed, a large number of trainers rushed into the forest in a frenzy to capture Pokémon, causing great trouble for Zorora and other wild Pokémon. The previous mayor of Windy City felt deeply sorry for this, and to protect Zorora from being disturbed, he told a huge lie to all the residents. He told everyone that Zorora was disappointed and strictly prohibited anyone from entering the cursed forest, ensuring that Zorora could live in peace. After he finished speaking, he glanced at Zorora apologetically and bowed his head deeply. To think such a thing could happen, Xiaozi sighed, his expression dejected. Sharona stood in silence for a long moment, letting the breeze ruffle her golden hair. She spoke with a wistful tone, "This kind of thing happens all the time, not just with Zorora, but with other Pokémon as well. But few know the truth behind the lies. Is this the truth about Zorora's curse? It's truly pitiful." Xiaoxi's eyes misted over, and she couldn't help but cover her lips with her hand, looking at Zorora with pity. Overhearing the chatter, Zorora remained silent for a long time, standing alone on a large rock, her demeanor closed to outsiders, a sight that only made people feel a pity. Feng was also affected by the sorrowful atmosphere, but he hadn't forgotten his mission. He was about to remind everyone of their purpose, but before he could speak, something unexpected happened. Bang! Bang! Accompanied by the sound of a bottle breaking, a thick cloud of smoke suddenly rose from the nearby forest, enveloping the surrounding trees and hills. And it seemed to spread outward. Instantly, everyone's attention was drawn to the thick smoke rising nearby, and they instinctively looked in that direction. Noticing the gradually spreading smoke, Xiaozi asked, somewhat puzzled, "Mayor Orba, is this part of the Wind Festival?" Mayor Orba frowned, pondered carefully for a moment, and shook his head with certainty, saying, "This isn't a Wind Festival activity. There must have been some kind of accident." Seeing this, Torito's pupils shrank slightly, as if realizing something. A look of panic took hold, and his body trembled as he whispered, "Is this impossible?" Xiaogang noticed Torito's unusual behavior and quickly asked, "What's wrong with you? Do you know what's going on?" Feng took notice of the scene before him and felt a headache. By then, he had finally remembered what had happened. Because the movie wasn't very well known, Feng's memory of it was vague, and some things hadn't been fully recalled. Earlier, he had been puzzled by how such a simple quest as retrieving the sacred flame could be considered an epic quest. At that moment, he understood everything. Feng knew full well that retrieving the sacred flame and placing it on the sacred flame stand was only one piece of the puzzle. The most important thing was to prevent the impending wildfire from damaging nearby Wind City and ensure the smooth progress of the Wind Festival. Elsewhere, Pip-Poo, Torito heard Xiaogang's question and was about to say something, but before he could open his mouth, he saw 3 Pidgeots flying out of the forest, falling weakly in front of them, falling unconscious. Seeing this, Torito was certain something had happened. He hurried over to the Pidgeots, carefully examining them, and spoke seriously. "The color of the smoke and these symptoms are most likely caused by a spore potion leak. Torito, is that the spore potion you're talking about? Is that the one Team Rocket stole?" Xiaozi and the other 2 heard this, and immediately remembered the potion Team Rocket had stolen not long ago, and hurriedly asked him. Torito nodded and signaled to the Chansey beside him to use aromatherapy on the 3 Pokémon in front of him, allowing them to recover from their coma. Sharona heard the conversation between the few people and noticed the appearance of the 3 Pokémon just now. She asked with some uneasiness, "What exactly is that spore potion you are talking about?" Torito paused for a moment and explained to everyone in a low voice, "The specific effect is still in the research stage and is not very clear at the moment. This potion mainly uses the spore characteristics of Pokémon to make a corresponding potion and put it into a capsule. Due to some effects of the spore characteristics, if these escape gases are accidentally inhaled, it will cause poisoning, paralysis symptoms will appear, and the body will be unable to move." After listening to Dorito's explanation, everyone was shocked and looked at him in disbelief. Sharona furrowed her brows, her expression delicate and stern, and asked, "Why are you researching something so dangerous?" Torito sighed, his head hanging low. "During our research, we've discovered that Pokémon spores have therapeutic effects on certain human ailments." After Torito's explanation, everyone fell silent, unsure what to say. Lu Feng observed the spore-based potion leaking, and the resulting smoke steadily approaching the city, already covering much of the area. He immediately addressed a contemplative group, "Everyone, I think now isn't the time to dwell on this matter. Instead, we should be thinking about how to solve the problem at hand." Lu Feng's warning brought everyone to their senses and they began to contemplate a solution. At that moment, Zeraora transformed into a flash of lightning, dashing towards the source of the potion's eruption, intent on saving the trapped wild Pokémon. Lu Feng looked at the Zeraora disappearing into the sky with a strange look in his eyes, thinking silently, if even an electric-type Zeraora without wings can fly, there shouldn't be any mythical beasts or legendary beasts that can't fly, right? Chapter 272 Everyone's Action. As Zeraora left, Larugo couldn't help but call out worriedly, "Zeraora!" Everyone sighed, then began to act according to the plan they had just agreed upon. Torito and Brock returned to Windfall City to mix a natural recovery potion to mitigate the spore poison, while Mayor Orba needed to return to the city to direct the residents to evacuate. Satoshi, Misty, and Larugo ran toward the nearby forest, hoping to help any wild Pokémon along the way. Lu Feng and Sharona exchanged a glance, then slowly nodded. They each released their Pokémon, hoping to harness their power to stop the billowing smoke from spreading. "Did you just capture this Garchomp?" Sharona's beautiful eyes noticed Lu Feng's Garchomp, a ripple in her heart, and she couldn't help but ask. Lu Feng nodded silently, gazing at the rapidly moving smoke in the distance. He softly replied, "I brought Garchomp from the dragon's lair. He's a trustworthy companion, Ka." As the rain continued to fall, the thick smoke in the air gradually blended with it, gradually forming a thick and dark pool of water on the ground. Although the speed of the smoke spread had slowed down, it could be seen that the smoke was still moving forward, without any stagnation. Noticing the situation in front of her, Sharona's expression changed slightly, her brows full of worry, and she said somewhat frustratedly, "It still doesn't work. Although the rain slows down the spread of the thick smoke, it is ultimately a drop in the bucket and only treats the symptoms, not the root cause. If we can't find a solution in a short time, the thick smoke will sooner or later submerge Fenglai City." Lu Feng looked around the surrounding environment and was silent for a long time. He turned to look at Sharona with a serious face and said seriously, "Our strength alone is still too weak. We need to rely on the power of Lugia to bring the wind of grace to control the thick smoke in the mountains and forests." "But hasn't Lugia appeared in Fenglai City for a long time? It shouldn't be that easy to use Lugia's power." Sharona thought of the relevant records in the city and looked at Lu Feng with some confusion. Lu Feng's lips curved into a curve, and with a confident expression, he replied, "I have a way to make Lugia appear and borrow his power to save Wind City. Miss Sharona, I'm leaving this in your hands." Hearing this, Sharona looked at Lu Feng silently for a long moment, then smiled beautifully and said, "I understand. Leave this to me." Lu Feng's eyes gleamed as he nodded to Sharona, entrusting the task to her. He then commanded Garchomp to retrieve the Holy Flame and fly towards the Holy Flame platform. In a split second, Lu Feng and Garchomp returned to the Holy Flame platform and together placed their flames back in their original place. A beam of azure divine light shot up into the sky, piercing the clouds. He took out the silver feather and the sea bell from his backpack and, from the Holy Flame platform, called out to Lugia. At this moment, the sun has gradually set, and the sky has slowly turned dark. The stars in the sky are shining, blooming with dazzling starlight. Due to the spread of thick smoke, the substation in Fenglai City has experienced an unknown fault as usual, and began to short-circuit, which caused a wildfire. In an instant, The flickering flames spread across the mountains and forests like wildfire, and in less than a moment, one side of the mountain was reduced to a sea of fire. At the same time, the power system of the entire city was paralyzed. Feng City, which was supposed to have a power outage the next day, went into power outage ahead of time. In an instant, the whole city became dark, and all the lights disappeared. If it weren't for the wildfire not far away, the entire Feng City would have become pitch black, and directly merged into the dim night. Lu Feng heard the movement coming from not far away, as well as the panic sounds of the residents in the city. He turned his head to look in the direction of the mountain, his face becoming extremely gloomy. At this time, hearing a familiar melody, Lu Feng's restless heart quietly calmed, and his gloomy expression gradually eased. "This is Lujia's song." Lu Feng turned and looked towards the sea, an expression of anticipation on his face. From the melody that had just come, Lu Feng already knew where this familiar feeling came from. It was the unique rhythm that sounded when Lujia appeared. Sure enough, not long after this familiar melody echoed, a huge figure flew over the calm sea, taking advantage of the alluring night and quickly approaching the holy flame. Hero of the Phoenix King. We meet again, accompanied by an ethereal humming sound in Lu Feng's heart. Lujia, who lived near the Whirlpool Islands, appeared directly in front of Lu Feng. Lu Feng looked up at Lujia in the sky and anxiously pleaded, "Lujia, please bring the wind of grace to stop the smoke from spreading through the mountains and forests. At the same time, send down torrential rain to extinguish the burning forest fires." Lujia glanced quietly at Lu Feng, then looked at the silver feather clenched in his hand. It fluttered its wings and nodded gently. From the aura lingering around the silver feather, it knew which Lujia had left it. It gave him a kind look and purred. It fluttered its powerful white wings, whipping a fierce gust of wind toward the gradually spreading smoke, blowing the approaching smoke back into the mountains. Wind. And Lujia flew at astonishing speed toward the burning fire and used his rain call move. Instantly, dark clouds covered the sky, interweaving with fine arcs of lightning and pouring down a torrential downpour. Compared to the combined efforts of the two Garcoms, the rain from Lujia alone was even more spectacular and massive. In a short while, the raging forest fire was extinguished. Seeing this scene unfold before him, Lu Feng couldn't help but breathe a sigh of relief. He flew with Garcomp towards the forest to reunite with Sharona, Zaya Ozzy, and the others. At that moment, countless residents of Windy City noticed Lujia appearing in the night sky. Their faces were filled with shock, their eyes filled with ecstasy, and they couldn't help but cheer. "Lujia has come to Windy City again." Led by some trainers, many Windy City residents rushed towards the fire, like devout believers, eager to see Lujia up close. Chapter 273 Invitation. Soon after, everyone gathered in front of the Feng City power substation and placed the humans and wild Pokémon who had fallen unconscious after inhaling the thick smoke onto the nearby lawn. Torito brought a naturally regenerating potion he had developed and personally handed it to Lu Feng, asking him to disperse it into the air to eliminate the spores. Since Lujia had already appeared, Lu Feng didn't resort to the destroyed old power station as in the original story. Instead, he poured the potion directly into the air and asked Lujia to spread the antidote. "Woo!" Lujia purred, its slender neck lowered, and nodded to Lu Feng. It flapped its massive wings, stirring up a massive gust of wind that spread the antidote across the city. As everything returned to calm, Lu Feng felt an inexplicable sense of strangeness, as if he were actually experiencing a Korean movie, a true-life escape scenario. Meanwhile, Mayor Orba explained the truth about Zeroy's curse to all the residents of Windward City, prompting many who remained unaware to express their apologies. Perhaps because Zerora had witnessed humanity's efforts during this incident, his once frozen heart gradually began to thaw and he began to let go. At this moment, Lujia, witnessing the harmonious relationship between humans and Pokémon, a flicker of joy filled his eyes. He flapped his wide wings, bringing a wind of grace to Windward City once again. He soared into the sky, bringing a peaceful melody, and the fire-ravaged city gradually returned to its former bustle, tranquility, and bustle. An unknown amount of time passed. The moon reached its zenith, twinkling stars and casting a soft moonlight. Amidst the inky night sky, a dazzling display of fireworks suddenly rose, illuminating the dim sky. Amid the joyous laughter of countless residents, Windward City's Wind Festival gradually began, reaching its climax. At Mayor Orba's invitation, Lu Feng, Sharona, and the others ascended to the city's finest observation deck to admire the magnificent spectacle. Gazing at the dazzling fireworks before them, Everyone couldn't help but reveal their mesmerized expressions, their faces etched with ecstasy, unable to recover for a long time. "Wow! This is the first time I've seen fireworks this beautiful," Misty exclaimed excitedly, her eyes agape as she gazed up at the sky. "It's truly beautiful." Though Ash and Brock remained silent, their expressions revealed their agreement. Even Pikachu tilted its head back, resting on Ash's shoulder, admiring the fireworks with longing. Sharona's beautiful eyes fixed on the fireworks, a radiance emanating from them. Her golden hair fluttered wildly in the wind, yet she couldn't hide the dazzling smile on her face. Lu Feng, who had caught a glimpse of this scene, was slightly taken aback, and stood there in a daze for a moment. Ding! Congratulations to the host for completing the epic quest, Wind City's celebration. Receive 100,000 Alliance coins and plus 4% world integration. With the quest complete, Lu Feng's world integration reached 55%, but he had no time to dwell on it, instead lost in a trance. As if sensing Lu Feng's gaze, Sharona turned around, and their eyes met, creating a subtle atmosphere. As time passed, the fireworks display prepared by Wind City gradually drew to a close. Lugia circled in the sky, uttered a humming cry to the crowd, and then departed Wind City, returning to its home in the sea, disappearing from view. Hearing the voice, Lu Feng snapped back to reality and quickly lowered his head, appearing embarrassed. A blush crept across his face. Sharona, observing Lu Feng's actions, couldn't help but burst into laughter, a sound like a silver bell, a faint blush spreading across her pretty face. A long moment passed. Sharona walked up to Lu Feng, staring at him quietly for a moment before saying sincerely, "Lu Feng. Thank you for this." Lu Feng looked at Sharona in confusion, a bewildered expression on his face, unsure of what she meant. As if sensing the bewilderment in Lu Feng's eyes, Sharona explained softly, "Thanks to you, I've obtained some data on Lugia, which has allowed me to make significant progress in my research. This Water City Pokémon seminar should yield some good results." Hearing Sharona's explanation, Lu Feng suddenly understood. After a moment's reflection, Lu Feng turned to Rodham, who was taking photos, and waved it over. Then, with a smile on his face, he looked at Sharona and said earnestly, "Since I've been of some help to you, Sharona, I'll give you a gift." Sharona stared at him for a long moment, a little startled, before smiling and nodding with a look of immense anticipation. "Lu Feng, what's the matter with you asking me to come here?" Rodham flew to Lu Feng's side, glaring at him with a hint of disapproval, as if blaming him for interrupting the fireworks display. Lu Feng ignored Rodham's expression and spoke softly, "Rodham, retrieve all the materials and send them to Sharona." "Got it." Rodham gave him a resentful look, but still followed his instructions and sent all the materials. Sharona heard the beeping of her communicator and couldn't help but pull it out and examine it, her beautiful eyes brimming with excitement. "This is information and images of legendary Pokémon?" she exclaimed, carefully scanning the information in her hand. A look of shock crossed her face as she exclaimed, "Thank you so much, Lu Feng." From the information Lu Feng had sent her, Sharona had already seen quite a few legendary Pokémon. Not only were there common legendaries like the 3 birds, the 3 sacred beasts, and the 3 pillars, but there were also Pokémon reaching high legendary power like Ho-Oh, Lugia, and Mew, Reshiram. Sharona knew full well that with this information in hand, along with the Sinnoh lore she had already gathered, her topic would undoubtedly be the most impressive at this Water City Pokémon Symposium, barring any unexpected events. "I'm glad I could help you," Lu Feng said softly, stroking his nose and gazing at the bright moon in the sky. "If time wasn't so tight, I might be able to help you find more information." After saying this, Lu Feng seemed to recall something. He looked at Sharona sheepishly and said with a troubled tone, "Sharona, if you're not in a hurry to return to Sinnoh, you could come with us to Alto Mare. We might find something new." Sharona smiled, her beautiful eyes gleaming with a glint. She asked casually, "Is this an invitation?" "Ah, of course," Lu Feng replied nervously, looking uneasy and unsure about where to place his hands. Sharona didn't respond directly, but turned and walked away, heading towards her room. Seeing this, Lu Feng assumed Sharona had refused. With a silent sigh, he also headed for his room. But before he could get far, a familiar voice stopped him in his tracks. He froze in place for a long moment, unable to recover. Only the lingering fragrance on the wind reminded Lu Feng that he hadn't just hallucinated. A moment later, a smile spread across Lu Feng's face. He suppressed his inner joy and hurried back to his room. Chapter 274, Heading to the Water City of Ottomer. July 10th, Wednesday. The sun was shining, the sky azure. After a brief discussion, Feng and the others decided to leave Wind City and set off for the water capital of Alto Mare. However, because Ozzy needed to travel to Azure City first to challenge the Azure Gym and obtain his 6th badge, Feng and Sharona waited in Wind City for 2 more days. Meanwhile, a gentle sea breeze, mingled with the fragrance of incense, permeated Wind City, adding a unique aroma to the air. Seeing that they would have to wait a while longer, Sharona headed to the Wind City Library to search for relevant books and materials to begin her research and thesis. Feng casually wandered around the city for a while, finding nothing new. After a moment's thought, he headed towards the Wind City Library. When he arrived, he happened to see Sharona, sitting on a chair in the library, carefully reading an ancient book. Gazing at the blonde beauty not far away, her stunning face glimpsed beneath her wildly flowing locks, Feng's eyes widened, his expression unconsciously lost in thought. As if sensing someone approaching, the light dimmed. Sharona's neck shifted slightly, her eyes scanning the surroundings. Upon noticing Feng's presence, a strange smile played on her lips. "Why are you in the library? Weren't you supposed to be strolling around?" Sharona asked casually, her eyes fixed on Feng. Feng pursed his lips and was about to reply, but upon sensing Sharona's gaze, he swallowed the words he was about to say. He lowered his head and said sheepishly, "Because the library offers scenery unlike anything in Fenglai City." Hearing Feng's response, Sharona froze for a moment, a blush spreading across her pretty face. Her bare hands tightly gripped a book in her hands, her face turned away, her thoughts unsettled. For a moment, the atmosphere in the small space grew tense, a faint, sour smell lingering in the air. A long silence fell between them. Feng, wondering if he'd said something wrong, began to glance around, trying to find something else to change the subject and break the awkwardness. Suddenly, he glanced sideways and caught sight of the ancient tome clutched tightly in Sharona's hands. "Curious?" he asked, "are you looking for information on the Water City?" Sharona, previously silent, lifted the book in her hands, a faint smile on her face, and nodded slightly. "I've heard that Ottomer also has ancient legends, so I'd like to research them to see if I can incorporate them into my research and enrich my case studies. It just so happens that the library has some books on the subject." Seeing Sharona's attention shift to the book, Feng breathed a sigh of relief, his tense body gradually relaxing. But he didn't notice the fleeting strange light in Sharona's eyes, or the faint blush that passed across her face, thinking he had diverted all her attention. Then, Feng, with an inquiring heart, watched Sharona's figure and whispered, "Oh, I wonder how your research is going." Sharona looked up at Feng, her eyes fixed on him. She flipped open a page from her book, handed it to him, and slowly began to narrate. "A long time ago, on an island called Ottomer, there lived an old man and an old woman. They rescued a pair of injured little siblings from the seashore and cared for them for a long time, until one day, an evil monster invaded the entire island. Just as Ottomer was about to be devoured by the monster, the rescued siblings transformed into their original forms before the old man and woman, revealing their true identities. It turns out the injured siblings were the infinite Pokémon Latias and Latias. These 2 legendary Pokémon summoned their companions, brought a jewel called the Heart Drop, and repelled the evil monster that threatened to devour the island, restoring peace to the island. Thus, a profound bond was forged between Aldemer and the Latias and Latias clans. A pair of Water City siblings would often hide within the city, protecting its peace, though no one had ever seen them. This was the first time Feng had heard what Sharona had described. While he knew some of the events that would occur in Aldemer, it had been so long since that observation that his memories were hazy, so he wasn't entirely sure why Latias and Latias were stationed in Aldemer. "So it's to repay a favor," Feng thought thoughtfully. Sharona watched Feng, lost in thought, her eyes beaming as she glanced towards the library windowsill. Gazing at the scene outside, she felt a remarkable sense of relief. A thought suddenly dawned on her, a strange feeling rising within her. Perhaps this trip to Ottomer would yield unexpected rewards. Recalling her encounter with the 3 sacred beasts, the Flame Emperor, during her time with Feng, Sharona's gaze fell on the book in her hands, and her smile widened even more. Meanwhile, as Feng and Sharona were researching materials in the Fenglai City Library, on a small island not far from Fenglai City, in an island city comparable in size to Fenglai City itself, 2 scantily clad women in black, with blonde or purple-blue hair, were stealing an ancient tome from the local library. Judging by the cover design, the tome looked much the same as the one Sharona was holding. These two were Sana and Liana, renowned thieves in the Elven world, and ranked number 1 in the world's thieves rankings. Using the pre-installed traps, they easily stole the relevant tome from the library and, evading the library security, landed in their own aircraft at the foot of the mountain. Sana, perplexed, eyed the book in her hands. Seated in the co-pilot seat, she shook her head dismissively. Tisk. It's just a legend. Is that really what we're looking for? Leon fastened her seatbelt and turned to Sana. Reflecting on the information she had just looked up, a faint smile crossed her face as she replied, the hard drop and the legendary Pokémon Latias and Latias do exist. Now it's time to verify them. With that, she took control of the aircraft, flying towards the nearby water city of Altomare. Under the pitch-black night, Altomare was ablaze with lights, presenting a scene of peace and tranquility. But it was unclear how long this tranquility would last. Meanwhile, on the other side, after an arduous battle, Ozzy finally obtained his 6th badge in the Johto region from C, the gym trainer at the Azure Gym. At that moment, they were boarding the Azure City ferry, returning to the island where Windward City was located, preparing to go on vacation to the water capital of Altomare. Half a day later, Ozzy and his companions arrived at Windward City. After receiving his message, Feng and Sharona left the Windward City library, packed their belongings, and headed for the dock. Feng took out the ferry ticket given to him by Mayor Oriba and boarded the ferry bound for Altomare. Although Sharona didn't receive the free ticket, with her wealth as a Sinnoh champion and the influence of the Temple clan, purchasing a ferry to Altomare was not difficult. Looking at the steadily deducting balance from his account, Feng's expression was filled with complexities. Is this the happiness of a rich woman? At that moment, Feng seemed to understand something that had been puzzling him for a long time, and everything in him suddenly became clear. If he wasn't concerned about his image, he would have wanted to run to Sharona and shout loudly, "Sisters Hoenn, I don't want to work hard anymore." 3. End of this chapter. Thank you so much for reading until the end. Don't forget to give it a like. Looking for more exclusive content and immediate access? Subscribe to our Patreon. Remember, every like, subscription or donation encourages us to continue. Thank you all. See you in the next video.